Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Silverstone. It is the annual running of the Silverstone 500, the blue ribbon event in the British GT Championship. 3 hours of close racing and intriguing strategy await us around the magnificent Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, which this afternoon is basking under some bright blue skies and ambient temperatures that are getting dangerously close to the 20s. It almost feels like summer's around the corner. Beautiful conditions for racing, a big grid of cars, 33 of them set to take to the circuit, 21 GT3 cars, and the rest of the field running in the very competitive GT4 category. And a lot of questions to be answered over the course of the next few hours. So make sure you strap yourselves in, make yourselves comfortable, and get ready to enjoy what should be, hopefully, a repeat of the really exciting race that we had at Donington Park to start the season not that long ago. That was a slightly shorter race, 2 hours in length, but it certainly did not lack drama.
Charles Dawson and Cian Jewis began the season with a dominant lights-to-flag victory. But the 2C's Mercedes AMG was made to work for it by Barwell's Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell, following this incident involving Blackthorn's Aston and Heath's Lotus. There was also drama at the chicane, where the gap between Mike Price and Nick Jones wasn't quite wide enough for a Porsche. Barwell's Lamborghini gave chase after the pit stops, but Jewis was never seriously threatened en route to victory on his British GT debut. In GT4, it was a case of what might have been for Mahiki, whose silver-class Lotus was disqualified from qualifying after setting fastest time. Aidan Neat charged from back to front to lead before swapping with Josh Miller, but dropped behind the Pro-Am crews as a result of a longer mandatory pit stop time. That left the way clear for Optimum's McLaren, shared by reigning champion Jack Brown and co-driver Mark Warren. They took the checkered flag 13 seconds ahead of Ravi Ravid and Charlie Robertson's BMW.
Well, fantastic opening round of the championship. This second round, though, as I said, is the biggest event of the season in the British GT Championship. And so fittingly, we have some extra pre-race festivities to indulge in. The Red Devils Parachute Regiment are putting on a show for the plenty of spectators, it must be said, who are packed into the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit this afternoon. And the Red Devils, who have made a few appearances, actually, at this event over the years. The weather today couldn't be better for us to enjoy their parachuting display. They are due to land in the gravel trap alongside the start-finish area of the circuit, right next to the grid, which is forming down below there. We can see the moment of landing as the cars arrive, the sun shines, a big crowd on hand, and I'm sure they'll give a huge round of applause to the Red Devils parachuters. Rather them than me is all I'll say to that. Andy McEwen here in the commentary box. James Baldwin alongside me. James, you have raced GT cars all over the place. That I can imagine is a fairly high adrenaline experience. Fancy a bit of this?
Not really. No, that's not a bit of me. I'm scared of heights, so that's not for me. But good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here. Silverstone 500. That is a massive flag, isn't it? Wow. Yeah, Silverstone 500, for me, the best British GT race on the calendar. Just the way it is, the length of the race, the strategy, the circuit. You can overtake here. It's nice and wide. It's going to be a good afternoon, I think.
It certainly is indeed, and this I think has got everybody revved up and ready to go. What an iconic shot that is as the cars pour around to the grid, and the Red Devils landing down on the grid. They are the British Parachute Regiment's parachute display team, and it really is an honour to have them here. It gives us a very patriotic feeling, doesn't it? And also gives us a demonstration that there is a little bit of a breeze blowing across the Silverstone circuit this afternoon. To talk technical briefly, James, how much are GT racing cars affected by a little bit of a breeze, especially a wide open venue such as Silverstone?
You can definitely feel it, more so in the GT3 than GT4, simply because you're going faster and they rely on the aero a bit more. So it will make a difference, and there's rain coming this afternoon, potentially 20% chance, so that might be a factor in today's race. But the weather for now is lovely.
Yes, it is indeed. And a few years ago, I think the Red Devils were supposed to be putting on a display for us here at Silverstone. Weather, unfortunately, prevented that from happening. But as you said, if there is rain coming later on this afternoon, it is not due until probably into the second half of the race. So for now, clear blue skies above us as this parachute team, who were created back in the 1960s, put on, or almost complete now, their display. In fact, if we look out of the commentary box window, we can probably see the big Union flag about to drop down on the ground. And momentarily, we'll have an opportunity to head down and chat to Bryn Lucas. Oh, that's a nice touch, the British GT Championship flag as well, just to remind everyone why we are here, ahead of, as I said, what's going to be a competitive 3 hours of British GT Championship racing. And I think the crowd on hand here at Silverstone have thoroughly enjoyed themselves. The flag drops, and not too much longer before the green flag will fly at the beginning of the Silverstone 500. A huge thank you to the Red Devils Parachute Regiment then. Great to have them here at Silverstone to start off this Blue Ribbon British GT event in style. So, as you can see, it's very busy down on the grid. In amongst all of the hustle and bustle is the third member of our team, Bryn Lucas, and he, I believe, is about to have a catch-up with Mr. SRO himself, Stefan Rattel.
I am indeed. Last year we almost got the Red Devils, but we didn't have the weather. This year we got both, Stefan. It's great to see you here looking suave and sophisticated in your shades. The architects of GT Racing, SRO, we'd love to know from you, first of all, great to see you here, but first I'd love to know from you where it all began, how it all came to be where we are right now.
Well, that's a long story, but you know, it's more than 30 years of developing GT racing, first in Europe and then all around the world, and in Britain for many years. You know, SRO was born at a British company, even if I'm French, as you can hear, and we've been promoting the championship for more than 20 years, and it's you know, it's a very solid platform with high level of competition. Brixing it GT3 and GT4 together on the grid, and it's continued to be very strong, as you can see.
What makes it so successful? Is it the fact it is now a fully international, global level of championship?
Yeah, the GT3 category has developed first at SRO Championship because we started the category, and then all over the world it conquered the DTM, it conquered Le Mans, it conquered the World Endurance Championship. So now GT3 is everywhere. We have more manufacturers than ever, more than 10, 11, 12 different manufacturers competing in GT3, and that creates an emulation also. And also you have on top of it the success of hypercars in the World Endurance Championship. A lot of young drivers coming to the sport, you know, looking, before they only looked at Formula One. Now they can look at, you know, becoming a Ferrari driver in the World Endurance Championship. That's something also appealing, or a McLaren driver or whatever. You know, you have, what, 8, 9 manufacturers in hypercar.
So many different options. So thank you so much indeed, Stefan, for coming along and watching that display as well. Let's go for a little wander. Thanks, Stefan. Let's go and catch up. There's Aaron Morgan here, having a little moment on the grid. Great to see him. Having a chat with Marvin. Marvin, sorry, Aaron, can I dive into Marvin here? Marvin, you guys are in the best position, the box office seat, as we say. And yesterday, your qualifying time was incredible. We know you have the fastest lap time for race trim, but quali as well was mega.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was a good day. Morgan did a really good job in his qualifying session. And yeah, it was definitely nice. Always a pleasure to drive a quali-trimmed car around Silverstone. So very happy, very pleased with that. But we know it's a long race, and you need to have some luck in this race. Like, you need to have the full Cosiello on your side, or the safety car. So yeah, that's probably going to be the key for today.
Already looking at full course yellows. Look, very best of luck. Let's go for a little bit of a wander. Thanks, Marvin. Thank you. Let's go a little bit further on now. Donington Park, they came fourth, and they start in a really strong position. And if they can bank a decent podium, first place ideally, that really does kick off their championship. And the team that needs to kick off their championship as well is this one, Johnny Adam. Now, Johnny, we know you're the winningest driver. We've had that title around your neck for a while, equal winningest driver, but not a great start at Donington Park for you.
No, it wasn't a great start for round one. The good thing is we had pace. It's not normally the best circuit for us is Donington. We're genuinely in the top 5 throughout the weekend, but this is a good circuit for us, Silverstone. Qualified well yesterday with P3. Jacqueline was driving really well this weekend. The team have dialed the setup in, so we're very optimistic. You know, we've got no pit stop time as well today. I think that'll play out to a good strength for us at the end, but looking forward to it. What better to have a bit of sunshine at Silverstone for 3 hours?
We know you're a wise owl, so you know that the championship isn't over after one round. So is it a case of you have to bank what you can to get this championship up and running?
Yeah, I mean, just to put it in perspective, there's big points to offer, for example, today. You know, it's 37.5 points, so yeah, we need a good result today. A podium would be great for us, but ultimately, if there's a chance for the win, we'll go for it. But there's a few cars in front and are fast as we can.
It's nice you've got your family around always watching. Thanks, Johnny. Good luck as well. Let's go for a little bit of a wander down this way and see Patrick Kajula, because he's joining the car with Alex Martin. No Sandy Mitchell in the car alongside him this time. Sandy is here. You can see him just over the back there, looking very, very studious at everything going on. Patrick, it's a new one for you in this championship with Alex. How's it been going so far?
Lovely. I mean, it's a great guy, great driver, and yeah, I'm expecting to have a good race with him.
He showed phenomenal pace last season, and he really was a champion-elect, but he didn't manage to take the title. And it was in part what happened at Silverstone last year, where they got taken out. So it's keep the race clean. But what are you saying to him? Because Sandy is also here, so he's got two voices in his ears.
I mean, at the end of the day, to win a championship, you got to be consistently, not to do any mistakes, and always score points. We have now a success penalty from the last race of Donington, so of course a podium will be hard, but we're trying to get the best maximum points possible for this race, and then, as I said, try to be consistent all season.
We've been looking at the tactics when it comes down to this race, because the 65-minute maximum time in the seat per driver per stint. And we looked at it, we think maybe sort of 12 minutes or so before we see any driver changes. A little glint in your eye there. Can you give us any hints to what you're expecting, not only from your team, but from the others around you?
I mean, there is a grey area between 9 and 11 minutes. Anything that happens after 11, I would imagine everybody's stopping.
Okay, thank you very much, Patrick. Very best of luck. Thanks to you for giving us all that insight. So around 11 minutes, Andy, I'm going to head off to GT4. Around 11 minutes before pit stops. We'll have to wait and see, won't we?
Well, yes, thank you, Bryn, because that's an important point to note for this round. For those of you who've tuned in for the Silverstone 500 in the past, you may remember that it was a fairly open strategy. There were minimum and maximum driver times, but this year they've changed it ever so slightly. So it's a 3-hour race. There is no definitive pit stop window. That's a change from all of the other rounds of the British GT Championship. Each team must, over the course of the 3 hours, conduct 3 mandatory driver changes. No driver can exceed 100 minutes total in the car, and there can be no more than 65 minutes between visits to the pit lane. You don't necessarily have to change the driver when you come into the pit lane, but you must come in, turn the car off, turn it back on, and then go again in order to reset the time. At the final round of pit stops, well, that's where the compensation time from Donington Park comes into play. The top 3 finishers in GT3 and GT4 from Donington will have to serve extra time in the pit lane at the final round of stops. 20 seconds for the class winners, 15 seconds for the runners-up, and 10 seconds for the third place drivers. In GT4, those entered into the Silver Cup. There were about 5 cars entered into Silver Cup. They have an extra 12 seconds to be served in the pits at every pit stop, and they also carry an extra 25 kilos of success ballast. Be making notes, everyone. There will be a test at the end. Right, let's head back down to the grid, shall we, and catch up once more with Bryn.
Yeah, thanks very much. Here with Corporal Cameron Clark. Now, talking about success penalties and ballast and things like that, you had to carry a fair bit of ballast on the way down, didn't you? That was absolutely incredible for us to watch.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was a great show, perfect weather for it, great area to land into, and yeah, we were lucky enough to fly the 7,000 square foot Union Jack into today's event.
What's it like for you guys? I know I've jumped out of a plane once before in my life and I was tempted to do it again, but you do so often there for these sorts of displays. Does it give you a buzz every single time?
You do still get a massive buzz doing these displays. I mean, I got 2,700 jumps, but nothing quite beats jumping into Silverstone.
Well, we loved it. Thank you very much to all the guys there. Cheers, guys. Thanks. Let's go for a little bit of a wander, though, Ollie. Let's have a little bit of a look further down the grid there. The Union flag and the British GT flag as well, they're flying. So it was great to see. Now, Aidan, hello. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm very well. It's beautiful sunshine and it's roasting in these suits, isn't it? And you've got the 2 layers to wear. Yesterday, both of you in the car, you and Josh, absolutely incredible when it came down to your time. I think 1.4 seconds up.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, just a great lap from Josh in Q1, and my lap in Q2 was really strong as well. So, I mean, to be on pole by that margin at such a big race, it's a cool feeling. So, looking forward to it now.
But the margin disappears, doesn't it, when it comes down to the race, because you start just a few meters ahead there, and you've got the 12 seconds at every single pit stop that you must take because of being a silver pairing.
Yeah, I mean, it always throws a curveball in, but we know the pace is strong, so we've got to take it lap by lap. Try build up that gap. We know it's going to happen, so in the pit stop, try get it, and yeah, see how it goes, really.
Very Very best of luck to you. Let's whistle a little bit further on. Thanks very much to both of you. Let's just disappear up and see if I can find Charlie Robertson. I'm going to go down. Ah, there he is. Let's go. Charlie is here standing on the other side of the car. I was expecting to be by the door, but no, he's curveballed it. Good to see you here. And, well, we know what you did at Donington Park last time out. That was a decent second place, puts you in a really strong position being a Pro-Am pairing as well. But you've got that pit stop compensation time on your third pit stop. When will that be?
Well, we don't know yet, so it all depends on what happens at the start. Safety cars, full course yellows. This race is so unpredictable. We know we have a good package to hopefully do well, so the plan is stay out of trouble and react to anything that happens.
We've been talking about pit stops because of this 65 minutes. I was just talking to Patrick Kajula down there saying we're not expecting anything before this 10-minute or 12-minute window. Is that what you're expecting, and are you likely to jump in at that point?
Well, I mean, yeah, we're probably not going to box before 10 minutes because it won't work, but if there's something happens post 15 to 45 minutes into the stint, then we're going to look at it. So you might see us in the box.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on you. Good luck. Thank you very much. Let's go a little bit further over to the right-hand side there, Ollie, and whistle over. I keep saying whistle. I'm not even sure that's a saying, but I'm going to keep on with it anyway. So Luca Hopkinson, great to see you here out in the sunshine, Luca, just getting the rays on the back of your neck there. What can you do? You've got Aiden up ahead there, and you're starting in a pretty good position.
I mean, I feel like we're going to try to win the race, but we'll see what we do from the first lap, see where we are, and then just go from there and work with what I've got.
Silver, so you've got that extra 12 seconds, but you've also had a bit of a problem at Donington with the retirement, so you've got to really get this championship up and running. Is the championship still within your reach?
I mean, yeah, 100%, that's what we're aiming for at the end of the season, but I think we'll be completely fine with the extra weight. I mean, I trust Harry's got a lot of pace, the car's fine. We've done a lot of test days and shakedowns, and the car's completely fine now, there's no more issues with it, so I think we'll be 100% fine for the end of the race.
Great stuff. We'll wish you the very best of luck. I always wish everyone the best of luck. Nice little pivot there. Thanks very much there to Luca. Let's go for a little stroll a bit further down, though, as we say goodbye to them all. A couple of birthdays to mention. We have, Sam Neary in GT3 celebrating his birthday, and they had a bit of a shocker over the course of this weekend. Gearbox issues in the practice sessions have forced them backwards. They made a change to setup for quali, and it got them nowhere. So overnight they've gone back to their setup that they know that works from last year. So hopefully, well, they're feeling confident. Hopefully Sam will be having a better birthday present today than he had, well, yesterday. Having a look at all these cars here, there is such a good choice. Just swing around to the right-hand side there for me, Ollie, because when you have a look at a Ferrari on a GT3 or a GT4 grid, it's always very, very exciting. And look at that, the 296. We have 3 of them on the grid this time. You have to wait a while. Snetterton 2020, last time we saw a Ferrari race in British GT. We got 3 out right now, so it's going to be thrilling to see those out and the other 32 cars on top of that one, 33-car grid. Andy, over to you. This one's going to be spicy.
Yes, good word for it. I think that, Bryn. Spicy, I would go along with. It's got all the ingredients, this, hasn't it, James, for an absolute classic. Qualifying yesterday, setting record pace in both GT3 and GT4. The qualifying lap record fell. We anticipate in these conditions the race lap records, existing late race lap records, are probably not that safe either. But the great thing is how unpredictable this race is. We've talked a lot about the cars, the drivers, the strategy, but really all of this works so well because of where we are. The Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, a great place for racing. And James, you've had the privilege of racing around here yourself.
That's it, the home of British motorsport. It's definitely the only F1 track we've got in the UK, and it's got a mixture of medium speed, low speed, high speed. It's super smooth, super flat. Really, really enjoyable to drive. Decent overtaking opportunities as well, so it should lead to good racing. And yeah, it's definitely, I think it's my second favourite. Brands Hatch does pip it for me, but
really?
Yeah, Silverstone's still pretty good.
Very different kinds of track, both
Very
sort
different.
of old school in their own way, aren't they? But this one, as you said, wide open, and that means that you can overtake. It also means maybe getting through the traffic is a little bit easier here than it is, for example, somewhere narrow like Brands Hatch. It's a magnificent circuit coming in at just under 3.7 miles in length. It all begins with the quick right-hander at Copse Corner, the world-famous Maggots and Beckett's complex, and then the first of the really good overtaking opportunities down at Stowe Corner. The Club Chicane is always an action point, as is the turn 13-14 area. That's the village and the loop sequence of corners, 2 innocuous enough looking corners on a track map, but those 2 slowest corners on the lap always produce good side-by-side racing, and then they blast down the Wellington Straight, appearing in front of the busy grandstands in the final sector. It is a fantastic circuit, one that's produced some all-time classics over the years, and let's hope that the 2025 edition of the Silverstone 500 is going to be exactly the same. The grid has been cleared of team members, co-drivers, VIPs, presenters, and we are now ready to go racing. The green flag waves, and this is the drivers' last opportunity to take a look at the track conditions, bed themselves in and get themselves ready for 3 hours of racing. It's a busy grid, as Bryn said, 33 cars set to contest the race, and after qualifying yesterday, a very competitive qualifying session, particularly in GT3, we really don't know who is going to come out on top at the end of 3 hours. What we do know is that it was 5 different cars that locked out the top 5 positions on the grid. These are your class pole sitters. The GT4 Endurance Cup went to Team Parker Racing, Optimum Motorsport in Pro-Am, Mahiki Racing with the GT4 Silver and outright pole sitters. In GT3, Silver Am went to Kessel Racing in the Ferrari, but it was the 77 Optimum Motorsport McLaren, Morgan Tilbrook and Marvin Kirchhoffer on pole position, and the new qualifying lap record goes to Marvin Kirchhoffer as well. Kevin Say in the 2Cs Mercedes is next, ahead of Giacomo Petrobelli in the Aston Martin, and Alex Martin in the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. Former winner of this race, Darren Leung, starts 5th in the BMW, with Simon Orange in his McLaren 6th. Row 4 then for the winners at Donington Park. Charles Dawson starts for 2Cs, and former champion Rob Collard, double former champion Rob Collard, back in the championship, starting 8th. Then the Silver Am pole sitter, Andrew Gilbert for Kessel Racing, ahead of Mark Smith for Paddock. Spirit of Races Ferraris, Duncan Cameron is 11th alongside Mike Price, with Andrew Howard's Beach Dean Aston Martin and Richard Neary's Team Abba Mercedes on row 7. 8th row of the grid for Nick Jones. The Team Parker Racing Porsche has Matt Topham in an Audi for Stella Motorsport for company on row 8. Row 9 for Chung Chong Ip and John Kearney in the Century BMW that lost a wheel in pre-qualifying yesterday. Claude Beauvais, Andre Borodin and Marcus Vivian will complete the GT3 ranks, and then we head into GT4, and actually 2 class pole sitters sharing the front row. Outright pole, though, dominantly went to Mahiki Racing's Lotus. They were 1.3 seconds quicker than anyone else on combined times, and Mark Warren's Optimum McLaren leads the anybody else in second place. Ravi Ramjeed will be next in his Century BMW alongside Harry George, then Stephen Lake in the second of Mahiki Lotus with Brandon Templeton alongside him. John Curry's Team Parker Mercedes makes it an all-Mercedes next row with Ed McDermott's sister car alongside. That's the Endurance Cup pole sitter. Ian Duggan in the third Lotus is next alongside Jamie Orton for Rob Boston Racing. And at the back of the grid, Peter Montague in the GT4 Aston Martin has the Jolt Racing McLaren on Rupert Williams for company. Cars then make their way through Village and the loop then towards the end of the green flag lap, and under bright blue skies and a busy crowd at Silverstone, 3 hours of racing lies ahead of us. Place your bets, everyone. Pick your favourites. There are plenty of candidates to choose from, and settle in for a great afternoon of entertainment. Lots of onboard cameras as well that will cycle throughout the race to give us a driver's eye view of the action. That was on board briefly there with John Curry in the number 30 GT4 Mercedes. At the head of the field though, McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, BMW. It is the stuff of dreams for GT racing fans. Let's put on a show for you all, shall we? The Silverstone 500 for 2025 about to get underway. Morgan Tilbrook leads them through Woodcote Corner. 2 by 2 they will run. The race starts when the red lights on the starting gantry go out, and that moment is just seconds away. Off they go towards Copse Corner. Tilbrook then gets the race underway from pole position and will desperately want to keep Kevin Say behind him into Copse Corner, which he has done. So the McLaren will lead. They're 3 abreast in the mid-pack, and this is Darren Leung. He was 5th on the grid. He's going for 3rd already to the inside of Petrobelli. To the outside was Alex Martin. Leung backed out of it sensibly, I think, with Charles Dawson picking up 1 spot to 6th. The championship leaders having won the season opener at Donington Park. The blue and pink Mercedes gaining ground already in GT4. It looks like Mahiki have held on to the early race lead as they file their way through the Maggotts and Beckett sequence for the first time and out onto the Hangar Straight. Century Motorsports are second, so Ravi Ramjeed's got ahead of Mark Warren for second in GT4. A punchy start to the race though, particularly, James, for those at the back of the top 5.
That's it. It's been fairly clean, apart from Petrobelli and Leung having a bit of side-by-side door contact there, so getting their elbows out. But the perfect start for Tilbrook in the McLaren. Does he have the pace now to run away at the front? Let's see. We'll soon find out.
Move up the inside there. Rob Collard getting ahead of Simon Orange. So Rob Collard, who started 8th on the grid, I believe that is now 6th place for the Lamborghini as one of the Astons bounces over the curbs a little bit further back. Thankfully, no major damage done, it would seem, and they continue on their way. They stream down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight into the quick right-hander at Abbey, and Tilbrook already settling in then ahead of Say, Martin 3rd, Petrobelli 4th, Young 5th, and Charles Dawson, in fairness, James, looking pretty racy. He's picked up 1 place already. That Mercedes that won at Donington Park last time, they're carrying an extra 30 kilos of ballast in the car this weekend, but at least in the early exchanges, Dawson is putting that behind him and trying to move forwards.
That's right, that 30 kilos will be hurting them, especially in race trim every lap. That's going to really hurt your tyres. But the Paradigm Competition BMW looking really racy. Darren trying to make some moves. He's definitely got more pace than he showed in qualifying, I think. The BMW a better race car than it was in quali.
Indeed so. Darren Young, who only started racing in 2021 in one-make Ginetta racing, but these days is a star of the World Endurance Championships GT categories. He is a former champion in British GT, and knows how to get the job done around here at Silverstone too. It's Tilbrook the leader then by 0.6 of a second over Kevin Say. Then a bit of a gap back to Alex Martin, who's ahead of Petrobelli now. So Martin putting the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini into 3rd, Petrobelli 4th, and Darren Young in 5th position. But the Barwell Lamborghini on the move then, James. The team were telling you that they didn't really feel the outright pace was there, but Alex Martin is a good racer, and he knows that if he can gain a position or so at the start of his stint, that will put Patrick Kuyala in a really good position when he jumps in later on.
Yeah, speaking to Barwell, they say that this round has really damaged limitation for them, as the Lambo this year has got a bigger restrictor, so on the straights they're lacking a bit of speed, which at Donington didn't hurt them too much. Silverstone's very power hungry, you need that grunt to get you down the straights, and yeah, they're suffering a bit of raw pace here, but they can still have a good race from where they are.
Mark Warren, by the way, in GT4, James, has had a drama. He started on the outside of row 1. This is the car that won the GT4 class at Donington Park. Listen in. Oh, there was a tap in the tail there as he turned into Copse Corner, and he's done a really good job, in fairness, James, to catch that.
It was a good catch, yeah, just a real punt from behind at the start, which is not what you need. You get onto the outside of the circuit, all the marbles are out there, you have no grip. He'll have no grip going into the next few corners as well, so yeah, not the ideal start there for the GT4.
Thankfully, no damage, at least obvious damage, done to the back of the car. He's dropped down to 5th, but that is your leading bunch in GT4. So it's car 84 of Josh Miller that leads the way. Ravi Ramid 2nd in the BMW, and 3rd position for Harry George. 4th then is the 2nd of the BMWs. So really strong pace out of the Beamers so far. That's the 14 example of Brandon Templeton, the 2nd Century Motorsport BMW. And then, as we said, Mark Warren completes that leading quintet of cars. Back in GT3, Richard Neary in the middle of a battle. I shouldn't really be surprised. It is Richard Neary. If there's a battle to be had, he will be in it if possible. He's sandwiched at the moment, though, with the NSX in front and the number 18 Aston Martin, which has looked wayward on a couple of occasions already. Running a little bit wide there. 19, sorry, Claude Beauvais running wide at Brooklands Corner. Important in these early stages, though, isn't it, to not get too carried away, James. I know it's a cliche. They're not going to win the race in the first few laps, but we've seen time and again in this race drivers put themselves out of contention by being a little bit too aggressive in the first few laps.
Yeah, and I think we've seen everyone behave really well, actually. I think, you know, as you say, you can try and win the race in the first corner. You're unlikely to, though, and it's a race of attrition, especially the Silverstone 500. 500 kilometres, give or take, 3 hours. The strategy is going to come into play. There's no point taking too much risk on this first 1 or 2 laps. Just settle into the race, get in the groove, let the tyres get up to pressure, and yeah, kick on from there.
Andrew Gilbert there in the 74 Ferrari is 11th place overall, but leading the Silver Am class. So Silver Am, silver graded drivers are in theory a little bit off the pace of an outright pro, a gold or a platinum graded driver, but we see some of the silver drivers are still very capable of mixing it at the front, and the 74 car, I think it's going to be a contender for a top 10 finish definitely by the end of the day. They round the club chicane in a nice bit of clear air, and that really, as a driver, especially an AM driver, is what you want, isn't it? You've got the race start out of the way, you just want to settle in some clean air. It's not a luxury that can be afforded to Mark Warren at the moment. He's trying to bounce back from that off at turn 1, but for the drivers who have found themselves an empty bit of racetrack, that's actually a good thing.
It certainly makes it a bit easier to ease into your stint. I mean, the first laps here are pretty steady, 2:01.1, about three and a bit seconds off the track record. So we will see these cars start to pick up in pace, but it is the first lap. Everyone's, as you know, you've got cold, under pressure tyres. It's very easy to lose the rear and lose grip. So, but yeah, steady start.
Jamie Orton there getting past Ed McDermott's Mercedes, and McDermott knocked out of his rhythm maybe a little bit. That allows Ian Duggan in the third Mahiki Racing Lotus to close in. This is all over 7th place overall in GT4, and the Mercedes rather slipping backwards a little bit. Ed McDermott losing a couple of places. I think gained 1 or 2 at the start, but is now starting to slip backwards. They've got the John Curry Mercedes closing in as well, the 2-team Parker Racing prepared AMG GT4s, and Ian Duggan in the third of the Lotus is trying to move ahead of the pair of them. They round Aintree and head down the Wellington Straight, and now it's time to pick your braking point into Brooklands. Tricky corner, Brooklands, isn't it? It really tightens up towards the end.
It is, and on the sim you would use all the curb on the inside just to really open up the corner. In real life it's a bit different. Curbs are quite slippy, so you can't just abuse the curbs to open up the track. But yeah, it's interesting. GT4s are obviously all the same category, and same with GT3s, but they all have their own individual strengths and weaknesses, and I think we saw there with the Mercedes lacking a bit of top end compared to the Lotus, which is going to make it quite hard to overtake that Lotus if they do want to progress and move forward.
Speaking of moving forward, here comes car number 86, and this is a really good opening stint for Chun Chong Ip at the moment. He picked up 2 places on the previous lap to go 14th, and now is on the tail of Matt Topham in the Stella Motorsport Audi. We're more familiar with seeing Topham at the wheel of Aston Martin machinery in the British GT Championship, both GT3 and GT4, but now trying to get to grips with the Audi, which is a completely different car. It's mid-engine, not front-engine. It's going to generate its lap time in a very different way, but yeah, good to see that number 86 car is looking competitive. The Bridger Motorsport prepared Honda NSX, a real fan favourite car, that, isn't it, the NSX, and a lot of people watching at home and around the track will be happy to see this car moving forwards.
I think people just love Japanese cars. I think that's what it is. And yeah, the Honda in the speed traps this weekend has looked the quickest. So in a straight line, it's very, very quick. In the corners, in the braking zones, I think that's where it's letting itself down a little bit. So overall lap time probably isn't there compared to the McLarens and the BMWs as such. But yeah, he's got a good run here on the Audi, though. He might be side by side going into Brooklands here.
Well, there's an example of that straight line speed, maybe, because he drags alongside the Audi, gets the inside line into Brooklands, and I think, yeah, he's going to complete the pass. That was pretty textbook into Brooklands corner, and a good example not only of straight line performance, but the fact that he got off the loop really well allowed that move to be possible at the other end of the straight.
Exactly, that good toe and good move done. He's clearly got the pace to kick on and catch the pack ahead. So how far off the next pack is he? 3 seconds?
3.5, yeah.
3.5, yeah. So, yeah, good move.
13th place now then for the NSX. I also noticed that Richard Neary there is on the back of this group too. He got ahead of Andrew Howard on the previous lap, and Howard actually has now slipped behind the second Blackthorn Aston Martin of Claude Beauvais. So I don't know if there's an issue for Andrew Howard, but he's losing quite a bit of time and quite a lot of positions. Only a couple of laps ago, he was in and around the same area as the number 8 Mercedes, which, as you can see, has now well and truly jumped onto the back of the group of cars directly ahead. They head down the hangar straight then. Richard Neary perhaps thinking now about making a move against Nick Jones in the Team Parker Racing Porsche. Nick will share that car today with Sven Muller, who is one of the top international GT drivers at the moment in GT World Challenge Europe. But Nick Jones, an experienced peddler as well, and he will be the next one to try and find a way past Matt Topham. I made the point there that Topham has spent a lot of his previous time at British GT racing a front-engine Aston Martin. It's something we haven't touched upon particularly this weekend, but in this group of cars alone, we have a mid-engined Audi, a rear-engined Porsche, a front-engined Mercedes. Balance of performance allows the cars to race very evenly, but it does mean that to drive, they are fundamentally different. And for a Matt Topham jumping from an Aston Martin to an Audi, that can be a head-scratcher.
The main thing is where the engine's placed, and that determines how the car feels. And as you say, you know, even though it's a GT3, they do feel completely different. But the main things with the BOP that they change is the turbo boost for the straight line speed, the weight to affect how it feels through the corners and how good it is through the corners. But now with the driver's stint timer being 65 minutes, that's a BOP in itself, because the cars have different sized fuel tanks. So some cars could have gone longer than other cars, and now that's not the case. They're all limited to that 65-minute window, which should equalise the cars a little bit more. It does close down the strategy option a little bit. As you said before, previous Silverstone 500s, anyone could pretty much do whatever they wanted to with the strategy. There's a bit more of a system in place now, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. It's obviously the first race with that stint timer at British GT. So.
Yes, and we are now 10.5 minutes in, so we're getting towards that point at which we were hearing on the grid teams might think about coming into the pit lane. I doubt we'll see the leaders coming in because they don't want to give up the track position, but once we start getting towards about the 15-minute mark, other teams further back might think about coming in. Why would they do that? Well, it means that they can get their pro driver in the car sooner. The pro driver can be out on track for perhaps 45 minutes or so, along with the AMs. That is something that usually you're not able to do in British GT because it's a fairly short sort of 10-minute pit stop window normally. So at the absolute most, a pro might have 10 minutes of track time alongside the AMs, except that's not generally how it goes. Teams understandably are keen to get the AMs out, get the pros in straight away. Here you have an option to get yourself some track position. Of course, you then have to pay for that a bit later in the race. The AM will have to complete their minimum 80 minutes in the race, but at least for now, a team that perhaps is further down the grid than they'd like to be, James, they do have that option to try and buy back some track position.
They do. You're right, we're getting towards that first pit stop window now, and the optimal strategy for all these teams is to run your pro for 100 minutes, which is the maximum, and then ideally the bronze driver's in for 80 minutes and happy days, but it's obviously not going to work out that perfectly, but that's the goal. I'm just so surprised with how well behaved everyone's being. I've seen one track limit from every car. I mean, no incidents, no spins, no crashes, no track limits. The main areas for track limits around Silverstone obviously is turn 1 exit, turn 7 exit, and then turn 10 as well. Those are the key areas where Peter Daly, the race director, will be keeping an eye on everyone.
To officially distance myself from those comments made by James Baldwin about how it's been a clean race so far. I claim no responsibility. Exactly. Not my fault. So far, so good, though, certainly. Definitely for the Optimum Motorsport McLaren. They're 1.5 seconds clear of Kevin Say at the front of the field. Another 1.6 back then to Alex Martin. So Martin, having got past Petrobelli early on, not really being able to get away yet from the Aston Martin. But that was an important move then for Alex Martin to make because, he might have struggled once the race settled down to find a way past the Aston Martin. Kevin Say, though, that number 18 car, that was very consistent across the 2 qualifying sessions yesterday, wasn't it? It didn't seem to matter which driver was in the 18 Mercedes. It was always sort of one of the top 2 or 3 fastest cars on track, and that bodes well for a race where, as you say, both drivers will have to spend a long time in the car.
It does. I think they didn't have the raw speed of the McLaren in P1, who had a 7/10 gap to P2 on aggregate, which is insane. But as you say, for a race of attrition like this, they're in good hands. The Mercedes is always a very reliable car. The McLaren does have question marks over the longer races and the reliability of it, so that might come into play. But yeah, the GT3 car's now getting towards the GT4 traffic. Again, another variable at play. There's so many variables in this race. It's crazy.
Yes, traffic management is always important, but especially around a high-speed circuit such as this, because really that's where a lot of the GT3 lap time comes from compared to a GT4, is that mid-corner speed through the medium and high-speed corners. If you're a GT3 driver and you catch a GT4 at Beckett's or Copse or perhaps through Abbey Corner as well, you can lose chunks of time. You can spend a whole stint trying to gain a second or two on another driver. You can lose it in a flash.
Exactly that. And it's not as simple as just drive round them. The racing line has all the grip, and offline it's full of marbles and dust, and it's not grippy at all. So if you do decide to go offline to overtake them, it's not ideal, it's not optimal. And yeah, sometimes the closing speeds, especially Maggotts Beckett's, as you say, those high-speed corners, it can catch you out. It can be a little bit scary at times. The straight line speed between the 2 cars is quite similar, to be honest. It's not too different. Under braking can be quite a big speed differential as well. So it's a skill in itself to be able to lap slower cars efficiently, and I think that's where a lot of the pros will stand out.
Indeed so. Incident, by the way, at the start between cars 90 and 71 is being investigated. That was the tap from Ravi Ramyeed to Mark Warren, which put the Mark Warren McLaren down the order slightly. Here, though, continues the progress of the Honda NSX, and Chun Chong-ip, who started 17th on the grid, is already up to 13th, and now going after Mike Price for 12th position. Mike Price, who shares the number 3 McLaren with Callum McLeod. Callum set the fastest lap in the morning warm-up earlier on today, which was underneath the race lap record pace. We are not there yet. 2 minutes 0.8 is the fastest lap of the race, actually set by Morgan Tilbrook a little bit earlier on. But once the pros get in, I do think that lap record will tumble. Here comes the NSX then to the inside line, and again, you can see how well it's performing in a straight line, and that can look a little bit unfair at times, but as you said, over the course of a lap, the BOP gives, but it takes away as well. Yes, the car performs well in a straight line. That allowed him to get that move made before the braking zone, really, at Stowe. But around the rest of the lap, Mike Price might well be able to come back at it.
That's the thing. If you're the McLaren in this instance, and raw speed is everything. If you qualify on pole, just run away at the front, happy days. But if you don't have a car that's got straight line speed in the race and you're in the mid-pack or at the back, it's really tough to make any progress. And, you know, seeing that with the Honda, it's got the straight line speed. It might not have the overall pace, but it can make the moves and it can get through the field. Same with the BMW. You see a lot in Europe, you know, they don't always qualify that well, but in the race, they make that progress. They can pass cars on the straight. You see a lot of BMW victories in Europe because of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good point, well made. Richard Neary, by the way, up ahead of Nick Jones now. Richard Neary, Bryn Lucas has reported, had a bit of a moment earlier on, an undisclosed moment. Don't know whether it was self-inflicted or not, but that's why he lost a little bit of ground. He's doing a nice job, though, of getting it back. That's 15th position now for Richard Neary. He chases back after Matt Topham in the Audi. I love watching Richard Neary race. He's one of those proper old school AM drivers. He's been doing this for a long time, longer than most of the other AMs on the grid, actually. And while some AM drivers, when they go out there, their main priority is stay out of trouble, hand the car over to the pro in one piece. I'm not saying Richard Neary goes out there with wild abandon, but if there's a chance for an overtake, he's probably going to go for it.
He takes no prisoners, doesn't he? Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, that can reap rewards, but it can also be a risk.
Yep.
And, you know, you need to find that balance, because you don't want to be too conservative and let people through and give time away and stuff like that, but you also don't want to be getting unnecessary damage and unnecessary penalties. But a move here going into Stowe, the Aston Martin trying to outbrake the Lambo. Oof.
Petrobelli almost into the back of Alex Martin there. I think Alex wasn't quite sure if he could turn into the corner or not, and Petrobelli therefore still has a chance into the Vale. Is there a gap to the inside? Yes, there is. He's late on the brakes. The Aston Martin goes through. That was a really good bit of racecraft, that, from Giacomo Petrobelli, who is looking to bounce back from that unfortunate collision that he had at Donington Park a few weeks ago. That was a bit of a blot in his copybook, but that was much more like it.
That was good, yeah. A real last-minute dive to the inside, and you can very easily get it wrong there because you're turning at the last minute and slamming on the brakes, but perfectly judged and good move.
Is that a move that is easier to make, do you think, in a front-engine car like the Aston Martin? Because when you do hit the brakes, you've got all that weight over the front axle. It will change direction quite nicely under braking, won't it?
It's a really good point, because, yeah, the front-engine cars on the brakes are more stable. The rear-engine and the mid-engine cars do tend to be a bit more nervous. So, yeah, good point there.
Occasionally it happens, James. I'm as surprised as you are. Right, the race leaders almost nose to tail. This gap was 1.8 seconds at the start of the lap, so Kevin Say somewhere has taken a chunk of time out of the lead. It was sector 1. He was over a second faster than Tilbrook in the first sector. Now that screams to me that there was a little bit of traffic maybe for Morgan, or perhaps he made a mistake. Either way, the gap is not 1.8 seconds now as they come across the line. At the end of lap number 9, it is just under 7/10 of a second, and Kevin Say now starting to ask some questions of the race leader. Tilbrook's had it pretty easy, pretty comfortable so far, but Kevin Say now, having closed in, Morgan's got to be careful not to let that become a distraction.
Generally speaking, I thought the McLaren would be better over a stint, but maybe this weekend is different. They do seem rapid over one lap, so maybe they're using a lot of the tyre, which over a stint is not going to help them. The Mercedes might be better over the longer stint, and I think we're starting to see that unfold. I think a lot of the teams will be on standby now, ready for something to happen for the pit stops, because we're really in that window now.
Yeah, 19 minutes in, near enough. This, meanwhile, is a good battle going on back in the GT4 ranks, which encompasses 2 Team Parker Racing Mercedes and 2 Mahiki Racing Lotus. And look who is coming over the hill. This is the overall race lead battle, and this for Morgan Tilbrook is the last thing you want to see ahead. 4 scrapping GT4 cars, and the first time they are lapped by the GT3s is always the most perilous, because the GT4s are quite closely bunched together, and they're not necessarily expecting the GT3s to arrive behind. How much warning can the team give those GT4 drivers here that they might need to have their eyes on the mirrors?
They can. I think it's better when you're just sort of left to your own devices in that sense, and you can judge it with your own sort of judgments. But this is what GT racing is all about, and it's the multi-class element of it. I love it. I think that the more multi-class racing there is, it just adds so much more to it. It's a skill in itself, lapping the traffic, and, you know, I think the key thing is staying ahead of the game. In Tilbrook's case, he would have seen these cars 4 or 5 corners back, so he can mentally prepare for, right, where am I roughly going to catch them? How can I overtake them with as little time loss as possible, and hopefully try and build a gap to stay behind. It's a good opportunity to try and, you know, get a bit lucky with the traffic and build that gap. And you can see he's gone up the inside of Luffield, and I think Say might be getting slightly held up here as well. Yeah, on the exit. Kevin
took deliberately, I think, a wide line into Luffield, knowing that he wasn't going to get the move made going in, so focused instead on a good exit. But Copse Corner is not a place that I would want to be following a GT4 car. And all of a sudden, oh, well, they both get delayed, actually. Say couldn't get past the Mahiki Lotus, though. But having lost a bit of time there, he could very easily get it back at the next corner. You've got to be so patient in the traffic. Tilbrook, though, has managed that well. He clears all 4 GT4 cars well before Kevin Say, and Kevin is stuck behind them now through a sequence of corners at which maybe the pace disparity between the classes is at its biggest.
That's rough, yeah. I mean, they do say over a long race it's give and take, and roughly it should even itself out. Sometimes you get good traffic, sometimes you get bad traffic. Doesn't always work out that fairly, but in that case, yeah, Kevin Say really getting held up though. He's probably lost about 2 seconds.
Yeah,
not ideal.
To the point that Petrobelli is now closer to him than he is to the race leader. So Petrobelli in 3rd position is now starting to think about maybe converting that into 2nd place. It didn't have any great effect on the GT4 battle, I don't think, except for the second team. Parker Mercedes maybe lost some ground. Alex Martin there lunges to the inside, and he's not that far away from being joined by his teammate, the reigning champion Rob Collard, on his return to the championship, having had to unfortunately miss the season opener due to a medical issue. He's right in behind the BMW, and again traffic has yielded an opportunity for Rob Collard. He'll use the Lotus as a bit of a pick now, maybe. Well, actually, in fairness, he gave Darren Young some room to go the inside of the Lotus as well. It didn't matter. Collard had gone through already, and that was great opportunistic driving, as you would expect from a double champion.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one really weird observation. The BMW compared to the Lotus in terms of size there was like double the size of it.
I mean,
terrifying
it is,
if you're in the Lotus, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes, especially when you know how rapid and aggressive Darren Lung is capable of being. But yeah, that's another great thing about GT racing. Collard's on the grass out of Aintree, still on the grass, halfway down the Wellington Straight. I'm not entirely sure how he ended up there. He's weaving around to get the dirt off the tyres, and Darren Lung almost sensed an opportunity to get back at him. That, meanwhile, is Simon Orange to the inside of Charles Dawson. That's for 7th position. So, yeah, you sort of predicted this, didn't you, James? You said that it had all been quite sort of well-behaved and calm until this point. As soon as they came across the traffic, all of a sudden it has ignited. They go either side of the Lotus, and Charles Dawson comes back at Simon Orange.
It was very processional until they got to the traffic, and now it's all, the script has been completely torn up. I think this is what multi-class is all about, you know. This makes it entertaining. It's sometimes it does catch a car out. You just can't do anything about it. You can't just knock them out of the way, even though they're 10 seconds a lap slower. And I think we sort of saw that last round at Donington with Petrobelli at Coppice taking out the Lotus. So it can happen.
Yeah, indeed so. And Charles Dawson did a really good job there, actually, I thought, to get back ahead of Simon Orange. It was a good move made by Simon. Dawson, to his credit, though, didn't let his head dip and went straight back to the move. This was Richard Neary doing exactly what I said he'd do, going for every gap available. Manages to nuzzle up the inside of the Audi of Matt Topham, and then there was a bit of a schmozzle between Nick Jones, and I think that was Claude Beauvais, wasn't it? Yes, it was. Jones ending up getting past Topham, mere moments, having traded paint with the Aston Martin.
That was close, yeah. That was a forceful move from Neary, wasn't it? I think probably just about okay. Rubbing his racing to an extent, and I think that was okay. But yeah. Oh.
So yeah, it was pretty close, that, I think, wasn't it? Neary, I'm not convinced there was contact from Neary. It was the other two behind, and you know, they were reacting, weren't they, to the situation they saw in front. And it's something maybe pro drivers are slightly better at than the AMs, perhaps. The AMs, they see that chance, they want to immediately go for it, but there are so many cars there that were in a fairly small space, and very easy to have a bit of clumsy contact like that.
Yeah, and you can see the McLaren with a late move on the GT4 car there. But one thing for me going from the sim to the real track was that the risk for that sort of move is so much greater in real life, because even if you just very slightly knock the radiator pipe on the front, you're out of the race. So like the tiniest, clumsiest bit of contact can be critical, and on the simulator it's just not that extreme. So but yeah, no harm done, a good move in the end. So yeah.
Right then, so that was the first sort of bout of traffic dealt with, but they will have many more encounters of the GT4 kind over the course of the race. We're nearly half an hour in, would you believe? We've not had anyone in the pit lane just yet, as far as I know. So for now, everyone quite happy to keep on tracking. This is your lead group of cars as they make their way through Magnets and Beckett's. Now only a second and a half covering the top three as Giacomo Petrobelli starts to try and reel in the race leaders. Tilbrook on the previous lap was about 3/4 of a second slower than the two cars behind. Again, traffic may have had something to do with that, but the point is that consistently now, it seems, James, Kevin Say and Giacomo Petrobelli are getting through the traffic a little bit more efficiently than Tilbrook.
Yeah, one thing is for sure, Tilbrook is not the quickest car on track right now. He's definitely the cork in the bottle, but track position when you're in the lead is everything. And, you know, Silverstone's fairly easy to overtake because it's nice and wide, but in a GT3 car that relies a bit on the downforce, you know, you've got more GT4 traffic approaching, but the aero push and the dirty air is a factor. A lot of people, obviously it's hard to see because you can't see it as an invisible thing, but it will make overtaking slightly more difficult in GT3 compared with GT4, for example.
Right then, more GT4 traffic. This is actually the second placed battle really in GT4. Ravi Rammeed, Harry George, Mark Warren, and that's Chris Sulkeld, isn't it? Sorry, Brandon Templeton, excuse me, in the second century BMW as well. Tilbrook to the inside of Templeton into Village. Templeton, in fairness there, stays right out of the way, but Kevin Say has closed in anyway, and Tilbrook now for the first time has to actively defend into the loop, and this is as close as these two have been. Less than a car length in it. They head onto the Wellington straight. More back markers ahead, but this is Kevin Say's opportunity. He's in the slipstream. He's had a good run out of Aintree, and there's a possibility of a move to be had into Brooklands. He thinks better of it, though. Had the back markers not been there, he might have had a bit more space to execute an overtake, but for now, James, Tilbrook hangs on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the traffic saved him a bit there, and you can see him on the flashes screaming at the GT4 car, get out of the way, I'm about to lose the lead, but and then you can see the flashes going again. A very useful device that to just let the GT4 cars, I'm coming through, please get out of the way.
Yes, but there's only so much they can do, really, isn't there? That's Ravi Rammeed, by the way, nipping up the inside of the Jolt McLaren to put a lap on it. Defensive line again for Tilbrook through Copse. He's slow on the exit. They go either side of Rammeed, but is this an opportunity again for Say to get an overlap? Not quite, as they head through Beckett's. I suspect Kevin just had to feather the throttle slightly to avoid contact there. This is tremendous racing, though. It's what British GT racing is all about. As James has said, this multi-class element, and again, three completely different cars. McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin, tied together by a very short piece of string, slicing and dicing their way through the traffic as they battle for the race lead. Behind them, by the way, Rob Collard, now he's been unleashed into some clean air ahead of Darren Leung, has set the fastest lap of the race, a 2 minute 0.795. Quite impressive, James, I'd say, on the 13th lap on those tyres.
Yeah, not bad at all. And I'm looking at the BMW of Darren Leung, he seems to be struggling for pace. I think maybe, I don't know if he picked up damage on the opening lap with that side-by-side contact with Petrobelli, but odd. I mean, the BMW is usually a very good race car, and we know how strong Darren is amongst the bronze rating drivers. So, yeah, not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, he's dropped 3.4 seconds behind Collard now. Yes, Collard is charging, but you're right, Darren Leung in a mid-2 minute 2 is slower than the lap time we'd expect to see from him, really. Leaders arrive at Village, still only a length or so between McLaren and Mercedes. They've got, I believe, just the leader of GT4 still to be lapped, and then they'll be into some clean air for a while. And that might just allow Morgan Tilbrook to catch his breath and get back into the rhythm that he had at the very start of the race. He's not had the neatest of runs out of the loop, though. And for the second lap in a row, Kevin Say is quite close behind the Optimum Motorsport McLaren heading to Brooklands. This time there are no GT4 cars in the way, but he wasn't quite close enough anyway to launch to the inside. Incredibly difficult, James, I'd imagine, to be in Morgan Tilbrook's position here. You know, you started on pole position, you've led every lap so far, you've safely dealt with all of the GT4s, but you just can't shake off Kevin Say's Mercedes behind. The slightest wrong move here from Morgan could cost him not only the lead, but second place as well.
Yeah, what's the saying? You're either giving pressure or taking it, and I think in this case he's definitely taking pressure, but he's doing a good job. He's not putting a foot wrong. You just need to, I would give the advice of stay out of your mirrors. As soon as you start looking in your mirrors too much, you're basically asking for a mistake. If you keep your eyes forward, you should just stick to your apexes, get the fundamentals right, and if you don't make a mistake, it's going to be hard for him to overtake, so that's the key thing.
Indeed so. Now, Darren Leung, you mentioned he was running a little bit low on pace. He's also running low on track limits lives. He's on his final warning already. These track limits warnings get reset at the end of every race hour. Well, that's still 31 minutes away. One more track limits infringement for Darren Leung there in the red and black BMW, and he will find himself facing a penalty. He's been caught actually by Charles Dawson in the 2C's Mercedes, which is still running well, 7th place, exactly where they started, only 10 seconds off the race lead. I'd say all things considered, this hasn't been a bad opening stint for Dawson.
Not too bad. I mean, nothing on his Donington opening stint where he literally just romped away at the front of the field. But yeah, the track limit situation with the Paradigm car, it makes sense if you're lacking that raw speed for whatever reason. You start to over-push, overdrive, you know, get a track limit here or there. You know, one more, as you say, and it's a drive-through penalty, which will be really, really bad for their race. So yeah, another half hour of driving within the limits for the BMW.
This, meanwhile, the battle for third place in GT4 with Harry George, number 17, Mark Warren, number 90 in behind. Both of them run out of the Optimum Motorsport stable, so they are teammates, but both very much racing for themselves. And, of course, the number 90 car, which started on the front row of the grid, is still trying to sort of regain the ground it lost. It's doing that now, though. Up the inside, look in the background, they went past the number 17, and so that was another place picked up for Mark Warren, puts him back into third position. The next target for car 90 will be the BMW BMW with whom he tangled at the start of the race. So I'm sure that will be a particularly sweet moment if and when it comes for Mark Warren to try and have a go at getting back ahead of Ravi Ramyed. But that was a good late lunge. We just caught it in the back of shot, James, into the loop. As there, around goes Claude Beauvais. That's a shame.
Where is that? That is Village, the loop?
Yeah,
that's the loop. So I think he's probably got a tank slapper going through Farm, lost it into Village, and yeah, here we go, replay.
So this was a lap ago into the same corner. That's the 25 BMW nipping up the inside of Andrew Howard. Andrew comes back at him into the loop. And, well, rather predictably, paint is traded. And I think that number 25 car is going to go around. John Kearney in the Century Motorsport BMW. That looks worse than it is. There's nothing really at that point Andrew Howard can do to avoid running into the side of the spinning BMW. This is what happened to Beauvais. He's battling with Nick Jones, James. And, well, they both seem to go for the same bit of racetrack at the same time.
From that angle, it looks like the Aston went for a very late move that was always going to sort of, the door was always going to shut. But hard to say. We need a sort of an onboard driver's cam there, really.
Into the pit lane, first of the pit callers, interestingly, is the 86 of Chun Cheong Ip. Now, I say interestingly because I expected if we were going to get some early stoppers, James, it might be a team who were struggling for pace and trying to get some track position in the pit lane. This car's been flying, but they've come in early anyway, and they are the first of our GT3 cars, in fact, the first car full stop, to make the first mandatory driver change of the race.
Yeah, strange one that, isn't it? No safety car or full course yellow or anything. Maybe they thought something was going to happen with the spinning cars and the cars that got involved in incidents, potentially. But they're definitely offset now from the rest of the grid. That could work in their favour later in the race. We know how this race works. It's a little bit of a lottery with, you know, when the safety car comes out, when the full course yellow comes out. If it aligns with your pit stop, it can win you the race, as we saw last year with the Garage 59 McLaren. Yeah, it's all up to play for.
Kevin Say thought about a move there against Morgan Tilbrook into Brooklands. This relentless pressure that Kevin Say is applying to Tilbrook hasn't yet led to a mistake for the race leader, in fairness. Tilbrook driving really well under pressure, and they have both gapped ever so slightly. Giacomo Petrobelli in third position. Of course, if they start battling, though, that may well change. Alex Martin and Rob Collard complete the top 5 in their Barwell Lamborghinis, as again, back markers start to come into play. That was Peter Montague's MKH Racing Aston Martin, and I think that delayed Petrobelli more than the other two. Yes, he had to sit behind the GT4 through Copse, and the gap ebbs, and it flows. And for Kevin Say, that's frustrating, really, because he needs to pounce when he is close to Tilbrook, but he can't really guarantee when that's going to be, especially as traffic becomes more of a constant factor. You might be planning in your head, right, I'm going to make move into Stowe. Stowe is where I'm quick, I'm going to make the move there, and then all of a sudden traffic arrives, and that plan goes out the window.
Yeah, Tilbrook's done a great job of really absorbing that pressure and not putting a foot wrong and just keeping Say it bay. I didn't want to rhyme there, but I did. But I think we saw how quick Marvin was yesterday. As soon as Marvin gets in the McLaren, he should have a chance of gapping the Mercedes. But maybe the Mercedes is just strong in the race today. Maybe it's a better race car than it is a quali car.
Looks pretty strong, doesn't it? As does the Mahiki Racing Lotus. This is Josh Miller leading in GT4. His lead in GT4 is 11.2 seconds. Now, why is that important? Well, he is in a GT4 Silver pairing. Remember, the Silvers have to spend an extra 12 seconds in the pit lane compared to the Pro-Ams at every single stop. So in theory, if he and the Century Motorsport BMW in second place in GT4 were to both pit now, the BMW would get back ahead as a result of that 12 extra seconds for the silver car. We've got more pit lane activity. Team Parker have brought the Porsche in, and the team manager of car 97, that's the Beach Dean Aston Martin of Andrew Howard, has been summoned to race control. That must, James, be because of that collision that we had with the BMW at the loop.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder how many team managers get summoned to race control and then there's not a penalty. So it's a likely penalty on the way, isn't it?
I would say you're probably right in that prediction, James, unfortunately. Battle again in GT4 now. This is for fourth position, I believe. Yes, it is. And it's the number 17 machine of Harry George defending from Brandon Templeton's Century BMW, which looks to the inside. It's a late move. That is covered off by the McLaren, but only just. That was quite a late defensive move, in fairness, from Harry George, but he keeps the BMW at bay. The GT4 BMWs do look pretty competitive, don't they? Ramy doing well, I'd say, to stay within 12 seconds of the rapid Mahiki Lotus, and now Templeton on the move as well.
Yeah, and the key thing with that leading Lotus is a silver-graded pairing, so they've got that 12-second compensation time at every pit stop. So over the course of the whole race, they're going to lose 36 seconds just in the pit stops. So, you know, as you say, if Ramyed stays within striking distance, they're definitely quids in for a win here.
indeed so. And of course, Ravi will be handing over to Charlie Robertson, his pro driver, at the next round of pit stops as well. Bryn reporting from the pit lane about the 86 that it was their plan all along, apparently, to come in early. There is the 86 car back out there with Luke Garlick now at the wheel. They did wait a little while before coming in. Apparently, they were originally planning on pitting him earlier, but I suppose the pace and the progress up the order that it was making sort of allowed them then to be a bit more flexible with the strategy. They could see how quick he was. The timing screen, interestingly, is still showing it at the wheel, and having just done a personal best in a purple sector on his outlap. I suspect that's a timing screen error and that it is Luke Garlick in the car. We'll get maybe Bryn to double check that, but yeah, having a quick AM who's doing his job well does open up the strategy a bit, doesn't it?
100%, 100%. And I think just looking at lap times in the GT3 specifically, the fastest race lap at the minute, 2 minutes 0.7, which, to be honest, you'd expect with these sort of conditions to be in the low 2 minutes, maybe a high 59 with the bronze rated drivers. So I think, yeah, Bryn just reporting back there on the WhatsApp group that the track is slow today. A lot of drivers saying the track is slow. They don't know why. We saw a lot of oil and fluid go down in the Ginetta Junior race this morning. That might have something to do with it potentially. The track should be rubbered in. The temps are pretty much perfect. 16 degrees. It's not too hot, not too cold. The tyres are in the perfect window for grip. So strange we're not seeing quicker lap times.
Rob Collard up the inside of his teammate Alex Martin. Now, I wasn't sure if that was a mistake or whether that was a little bit orchestrated. Alex Martin, well, no, it wasn't orchestrated, was it? Because he's fighting back now around the outside into Cops Corner. He ran very wide at Lovefield, did Martin, though. And as Kevin Say pits from second place, Rob Collard moves up ahead of his teammates. So that will put Collard now into third position with the pit stop for the 2Cs Mercedes. And Rob Collard charging through the order nicely. Started 8th on the grid. That's kind of a net 4th, if you like, that he's just taken, but it's actually 3rd because 2Cs have brought the 18 car in. Now that makes a little bit more sense to me, maybe, James, because I think it's clear that Kevin Say was getting held up behind. Tilbrook hadn't been able to find a way through. This is an opportunity now for 2Cs to put that car ahead, as the number 3 McLaren looks worryingly like it's grinding to a halt.
Yeah, and the headlights are off. Making me think maybe there's some sort of electronic issue there, so that's not ideal for the McLaren. But yeah, back to the Mercedes. Yeah, an undercut would be possible. It's hard because the outlap you're on coldish tyres, so you will go slower than someone who's already up to speed. So overcuts in GT racing tend to be the way to go, not undercuts. But yeah, that McLaren was last seen, I think, facing the wrong way at Abbey.
Right, okay, that makes sense. So he was recovering from a spin, perhaps catching his breath slightly. Tyre change going on down at 2Cs. Oh no, he has now come to a halt, hasn't he? Now, what does this mean if we get a safety car? I wonder. Minimum pit stop time for GT3 is 115 seconds, so just under 2 minutes. A lap time is over 2 minutes. So Kevin Say, well, it won't be Kevin Say now, will he? He'll be handing the car over to Maximilian Gertz. This car should still rejoin on the lead lap, which means if we do get a safety car, they could be quids in. GT4 battle continues. Templeton up alongside Harry George. It's the outside line into the club chicane, though, for the Century Motorsport BMW. For now, the McLaren will hang on. And also just a little bit of news that's come in. A 10-second penalty has been handed out to Andrew Howard for that collision with the BMW earlier on. But it's all starting to come alive now, isn't it, as we come towards 40 minutes in.
Yeah, this GT4 McLaren and the BMW are fighting hard, but yeah, the Aston's box, so they're following the Mercedes strategy in a way. So they should emerge fairly close. They might actually jump the Mercedes with that overcut, so there could be a change for P2 and P3 here. Tilbrook's still going. I think if he'll have to box soon, otherwise he will get undercut, because it's clear to see the Aston and the Mercedes are quicker than Tilbrook at this time, especially when you consider the pros are going in the car as well now.
No, exactly that. Johnny Adam will jump into the Aston Martin. We've had already Maximilian Gertz into the number 18 Mercedes. That car, by the way, is back out on circuit now, so Maximilian already on his outlap. Sven Muller, of course, has jumped into the Team Parker Porsche. He's just done the fastest lap of the race, 1:59.470. Remember, that lap record is a 58.3, so he is still over a second away from that. But some of these front-running cars with the pros in, may well get underneath that 58.3 banner. There is Maximilian Gertz then. He's out on track. This is a really important lap for Gertz to try and keep the Aston Martin behind, but also when we anticipate car 77 in the pit lane, to try and get the lead away from them.
Yeah, there's a good chance that Mercedes will emerge out of all of this in the net lead. And as you say, a really important outlap And it's hard because you want to ease into your stint and sort of build up to it. But at the same time, in a situation like this, it really is 0 to 100% in an instant. And but they're pro drivers; they know what they're doing.
Of course, part of the issue really now, though, for Gertz is that he's rejoined behind GT3 cars who are on the lead lap, so they have no obligation to get out of the way. We're hearing we may be about to go full course yellow. Yes, prepare for full course yellow, says the timing screen. Now, this is an advantage to anyone who were to dive into the pit lane right now, because the cars now have to slow down to full course yellow speed just as Johnny Adam is released from the pit lane. This, I think, is a big advantage to Blackthorn because Gertz is stuck there on the exit of Luffield corner going at full course yellow pace. Johnny Adam can rejoin the pit lane, and I think this is going to hand the position to the Aston Martin.
I'm just looking to see where Tilbrook is on the track because this is, as you say, it's the perfect time to box.
At Luffield, I think he's heading to pit entry.
Oh, there we go. This could be huge for the McLaren, just to build that gap as the leader. So when Marvin gets in the car, he's got a bit more of a buffer to play with back to the Aston and the Mercedes.
And there he is, right on cue, as is Rob Collard, so not a huge surprise. That couldn't have landed better. And this is that lottery element, isn't it, that we weren't, some of the teams like, some of the teams don't like. If you could be on the right side of it, then...
How did Collard catch Tilbrook so much? The gap was 6 seconds, and now he's right on him.
Actually, yes, I hadn't clocked that, so I wonder whether maybe Tilbrook's had a drama there. There is the reason for the full course yellow. And the number 3 car then, which we saw pull over to the side of the road. I believe Bryn Lucas has an update for us on what happened to car number 3.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. I can tell you that it had a spin and then went into limp mode. So they're on a power cycle at the moment, trying to get it back up to normal mode, normal race mode. So they are expecting to get it up and running. It's just going through a bit of a moment where they're on that Control-Alt-Delete phase. But while that's going on, a lot of teams are taking advantage of the pit stops, as we'd expect.
You, Bryn, you're absolutely right. Barwell is a busy place to be at the moment. They've got both of their cars in the pit lane, but Bryn, I would be intrigued to know what happened to Morgan Tilbrook there, whether he did have a moment on the in-lap, and how Rob Collard gained, as James quite rightly said, 6 or 7 seconds or so, I think it was, on the race leader. The 3 car then will be pushed behind the barriers up at Village. Pit lane is now busier than the racetrack, it seems. Tilbrook came in, so did Collard Martin, as we've said. Darren Leung brought the Century BMW, the Paradigm BMW in. 67 Simon Orange is in too. Mark Smith, basically everyone apart from James, Charles Dawson. Charles Dawson has stayed out of the leading sort of 10 GT3 cars. He's the only one to go and do something different.
I personally don't get that. I don't see what you would gain from doing that, but maybe they know something we don't. One thing I know for sure is that this is a very long full course yellow, and we're probably getting into the window now of, do we go safety car?
That's a good point, actually, yes, because I think I heard in my ear 10-minute full course yellow we were looking at, so that may well be what happens. Out goes the 77 directly ahead of the number 1 Lamborghini, but as you say, that gap is an awful lot smaller than it was immediately before the full course yellow flew. So out goes 77. That now has Marvin Kirchhoffer, the race and lap record holder for now, at least here at Silverstone. And right behind him is Hugo Cook in the number 1 car. Hugo Cook, who only made his British GT debut last year, is a former winner here at Silverstone, actually, in the Burkitt 6-hour relay race that takes place at the end of every season, which is a truly ridiculous race. If you've never had the chance to watch the Burkitt, it's something I'd highly recommend. But he was a class winner a number of years ago in that race. And Hugo Cook, relatively new to GT racing, but the 20-year-old we know is a very rapid young driver. Well, there's Rob Collard. He looks pretty happy with the job that he's done, James. We are anticipating we're going to get a safety car, by the way, as you sort of predicted would be the case. But either way, Rob Collard's car has gained massively out of all of this. No wonder he's got a smile on his face.
Yeah, the big question for me, did they gain on the leader, or did the leader lose out?
Well, yes.
Because that's going to really determine where both of these cars feed out compared to the Aston and the Mercedes. So, but I think, let me just get a handle on this. I think they've lost out, haven't they? They're behind. It's kind of hard to see. No, they are ahead. They're ahead. They've maintained the lead, yeah. So I'm not sure how the Barwell Lambo gained so much there. It would be really good to see what happened there.
Hopefully, our man on the ground, Bryn Lucas, can dig out an answer to that. That would be useful. But yeah, something strange happened. And whilst we were focusing on the cause of the full course yellow, we're not entirely sure exactly what led to that. So Marvin Kirchhoffer then we believe is going to be your race leader from Hugo Cook. Patrick Kujala in the second Barwell Lamborghini is next. There you can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side of shot the number of pit stops made by various cars. The issue that we're sort of predicting here for this 42 car is that they haven't made a pit stop, but they've actually only gained one place out of all of this. So they've chosen to keep Charles Dawson out there. They're obviously going to stick to a fairly rigid stint length at the moment. Big losers, though, James, as you've just pointed out, two of the cars who were fighting for the race lead are going to be quite some way adrift of the lead once all is said and done.
This is it, the luck element. The FCY came out just after they boxed, and they've lost out 14 positions for Johnny Adam and Goetze. So unfortunate, but that is the way it goes. I'm sure maybe it'll come back in their favour later in the race.
Well, yes, and a safety car will at least bunch them back together, but they'll then have a heck of a lot of overtaking to do in order to get back into contention. Right, we have a moment of calm on the track. The pit lane, I think, is largely empty now, which means that Bryn Lucas can give us a little bit of information of a tyre-related sort, I believe.
I can certainly try. It may be calm now because the pit lane's calm, but inside the garage is a lot of hustle and bustle going on as they kind of reset. But I was talking to Morgan Tilbrook. He said he got a little bit stuck behind some back markers. That seems to be a good excuse at the moment, doesn't it? But he was talking to me about tyres, saying that he was out on his quali tyres and he was really struggling at the end of that stint. But he was saying that now they've got really, really good strategy with brand new tyres going out for the long stints that they're going to be hitting up later. So it means that Marvin can go out on brand new tyres, whereas others, like Petrobelli, for example, who started on brand new tyres, may be going to struggle when it comes to using quali tyres later on. Does that make any sense? I've said tyres about 48 times in that sentence, but it seems to make sense to me anyway.
And that is ultimately all that matters, Bryn. Yes, no, it did make sense, and makes it even more impressive, I suppose, James, that Tilbrook held on to the advantage and had decent pace on slightly older tyres, certainly. Might prove to be a long-term gain. The trouble is that, well, I suppose, yeah, they've kept the lead as well out of all of this. So actually, if that is the case, Optimum, I think, will be pretty pleased with the way that this has all worked out.
Yeah, what it's done is brought Barwell right into it.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, we know they're lacking a bit of raw speed, but it's not always about being the quickest. It's about, you know, being the best on average, understanding it's a race of attrition, and they're definitely doing that so far.
Yeah, Silverstone traditionally has not actually been a great Lamborghini circuit, and yet Barwell have had great success in this race.
They're always there.
Because they always find a way, don't they, through strategy, a little bit of luck maybe. That was Charles Dawson, by the way, bringing what was briefly the race-leading 42 Mercedes in. So I think maybe having realised they'd missed the boat on catching the full course yellow, they've decided now, whilst everyone's going slowly, they can stretch that stint a little bit further. And then come in without losing any more time than they otherwise would have done. So they are your leading two cars that have just gone out of shot, 77 and 1. And this, we think, is going to be the battle for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th positions. And back out into that comes the 42, we believe now with Kian Jewis on board. So actually, having missed the chance to pit as the full course yellow came out, 2Cs might have played quite a clever strategy there because they've not lost out by staying out that extra lap or so. In fact, if anything, it looks like they might be debating whether they've got ahead of the 67.
Yeah, you're right. They've banked on a longer FCY period, which means they've not lost out because they've still done it under the FCY, but they've just extended that driver's stint time. So that should play in their favour later in the race. But that was really close, that rejoin with the McLaren. I think they might have had half a metre in front, so that means they keep the position on the pit exit line. I think that's where it's determined by. So, yeah, really, really close in the mid-pack.
Yeah, so absolutely. So the point James is making then is that Dawson has stretched his stint time by an extra 5 or 6 minutes or so. So that's 5 or 6 minutes less that he still has to do compared to the other rounds, and 5 or 6 minutes more, perhaps, that Kian Jewis can have in this particular stint. So actually, it proves what we know, doesn't it, James? We were sort of criticising that decision to stay out. It might have actually been the best course of action. Out goes the 27 Audi. Darren Burke now at the wheel, and that, I think, completes our pit stops. Everyone now, I believe, has made their first mandatory driver change of the day. And we'll get a proper look at what the order looks like in a moment or two once they all get bunched up behind the safety car, but it looks to me like it will be 77, 1 and 78 the leading 3, and then this big bunch of cars battling over 3rd position. So Kujala in the 78, Dan Harper now plugged into car 91, Marcus Clutton in the 67, who of course is just behind now number 42. There is Marcus Clutton, who was a contender here a year ago for victory in this race until it all went a little bit wrong up at Village. Marcus was quite hard on himself, actually, after that collision that he had, and took them out of contention for the win. He'd love to have another crack at adding a Silverstone 500 victory to his already pretty impressive resume. The other question I suppose we need to try and have a go at figuring out an answer for is what this all means for GT4. Aidan Neat is showing still as the race leader in car 84 from Charlie Robertson now into the 71, and the number 90 in third position. That's Jack Brown for Optimum Motorsport, who was quickest in his part of qualifying yesterday as well. Third quickest he was in his part of qualifying, Jack Brown. The GT4 field, I think the order has stayed largely the same, but of course the gaps are all going to start to come down once the safety car is scrambled. So that's the next thing we're waiting for now then, for the full course yellow to be sort of converted into a full safety car period. And that should happen, I think, in the relatively near future. So, James, we are nearly an hour in, lots to talk about already, yeah, we're setting the stage quite nicely now. This has jumbled the order a little bit and given us a few more storylines to follow over the next 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, it was a steady start, wasn't it? But it's now got interesting with all the multi-class aspect and the FCYs and the incidents and the McLaren causing all of it really when it sort of broke down. So yeah, I think this FCY period, I think we're going to see the implementation of the wave buy for the GT4 cars, because I think a couple of cars have got lapped, a couple haven't. So I think just to even up the playing field a little bit for GT4, we'll see that wave buy procedure when the safety car comes out in a few minutes' time. So yeah.
Did chat to Peter Daly about that actually beforehand, the race director, and he said that's something that he doesn't really want to use until everyone's completed all of their pit stops, so only realistically in the last part of the race. However, everyone has completed the same amount of pit stops at the moment, one, so he might still see this as an opportunity to use it. What he doesn't want to do is have people on different strategies having made more stops than others. Case in point, 91 back into the pit lane, Dan Harper. Now, is this going to be for a driver change or just a driver stint reset, I wonder, because this is another strategy that Darren Leung was telling us about yesterday. He said that if you get a safety car early in a stint, you can extend it, because the cars, James, are capable of doing more than 65 minutes on a tank of fuel. They can do 70 or 75 minutes. If he comes in, stops, turns the engine off and gets back out, he would reset it. But no, they are going for a driver change.
I was going to say, in my head, it wouldn't make sense to come in to reset the stint timer because you're going to lose track position, and I don't think it's worth that. But doing a driver swap under another FCY, it puts them on the limit of being able to get to the end of the race with 2 more stints, but just about possible, and this could actually be a really good idea.
Yes, no more than 100 minutes can be completed by any driver, so yeah, they wouldn't be able to go to the end with just Dan Harper. They'll have to get Darren Leung back in again at some point, but yeah, we'll see what they elect to do. They've got other pit stop to do anyway, so yeah, okay, that might be an interesting strategy. Of course, what it does mean is they're going to put their AM driver back out amongst all of the pros now, so it might be short-term pain, but then maybe long-term gain once the race settles in a bit later on. Safety car is out on track right now. They're still under full course yellow conditions at the moment, but the safety car comes out to collect the leader, and then once it's done so, which it has, the lights will go on and the safety car period begins. That means actually, weirdly, cars can now accelerate to catch up to the back of the safety car queue. And that potentially means that this BMW is going to lose even more track position, because now people are going quicker than they were beforehand. It's an interesting call, that.
It is. For those who are wondering why the BMW's just sat there doing nothing, there's a minimum pit stop time of 115 seconds for GT3. So even if you've done everything, you've done the driver swap, you're all belted up, ready to go, you have to wait for the timer in the car to get to 115 seconds before you can actually leave the box. So they haven't forgot to press the throttle pedal, if that's what you're wondering.
Yes, and that is from pit entry to pit exit as well. It's not necessarily just a stationary time, it's the time from the pit entry line to the pit exit line. That's a slightly trickier calculation. We do see teams sometimes stumbling over that. So out goes Darren Leung then, and we'll find out at the end of the lap exactly where he's sort of filtering into all of this. It's the Beechstein car ahead of him, so I reckon that puts him down in about 14th place or so. But they're looking to try and give themselves as much Dan Harper seat time as they can in the latter part of the race. Right, speaking of Dan Harper, perhaps with a definitive answer on exactly what this strategy call was all about, Bryn Lucas has made his way down to that end of the pit lane and can grill the former winner of this race on all things strategy.
I'm not sure you should ever ask the driver what's going on with strategy. They just tell you I'm doing what I'm told. And Dan, I suspect that's the answer you're going to give me. But coming in for the pit stop and changing over when you only had a short stint yourself, does that put you on the front foot, do you think? Clearly, that's why they've done it. But
I hope so. We'll see, I guess, as the race plays on. It really depends on the more safety cars, full course yellow, as the race goes on. So it's a bit of a gamble, but I think in the first stint and also in qualifying, we didn't exactly have the outright pace to win the race. The couple of cars in front were just a little bit faster, so it's worth a gamble, let's say. And I think there's a strategy, like the guys have done a lot of research, and we think there's another strategy which can work. So we're giving it a go.
We know there's a 100-minute maximum time in the seat, and we know that means the other driver's going to do a minimum of 80 minutes there. Does this mean that Darren's going to have to run longer than that, 80 minutes? He's going to have to do somewhere around 85 for you to be able to make up the time?
Yeah, exactly. It might end up that Darren does a little bit of driving, but in terms of how long you stay stationary, which of course that's the big winner. If the others are staying stopped here in the pits longer than us, then it's harder to make that time up on track. So let's see.
It's a happy hunting ground for you and Darren. Last year, you proved a successful partnership as well as a championship-winning season. So the relationship's still lovely, and the flame is still burning bright.
Absolutely, yeah. I love racing with Darren. He's just a friend now more than anything, and we always make the most out of every weekend. But we've also been very successful the last couple of years. So I love working with these guys.
The little birdie told me he flew off to see the boxing last night as well. Did you go with him?
No, I was sitting in a nice Italian eating a pizza instead, but it looked good fun. But that was more the boxing guys. I don't know about that. I follow Connor. That's about it.
Priorities. Thanks very much, Dan.
Thank you, Bryn. Good stuff there. Good to hear from Dan Harper. Well, whatever this strategy is, James, they've now sort of set a trend, haven't they? Because other people are copying them. We've got the 78 in now, the Barwell Lamborghini. Interestingly, not both Barwell Lamborghinis, though. So Barwell splitting their strategy now slightly between 78 and 1. Martin Plowman's brought the number 9 Paddock Motorsport car in, and the number 66 Porsche from Team Parker Racing had also just stopped. However, they've been given a stop-go penalty for too short a pit stop. Now, that would have been the first pit stop that they made, because that notification came out whilst they were serving the second stop. So it was the first stop that was too short, below that minimum time. I was just saying how that catches teams out sometimes. Even a team with the experience, immense experience of Team Parker Racing can be caught out by that regulation, and so they'll have to come in and serve a stop-go penalty. So we've now had, I think, about 5 or 6 of the GT3 cars make a second pit stop. They'll close back in to the rear of the safety car queue, and we now have what feels like a good old-fashioned Silverstone 500 with completely split strategy.
Yeah, it can get confusing at this point, because you're not fully sure what strategy is going to emerge at the end of the race like. But safety car now, everyone's going to be starting to weed and get tyre pressure and tyre temp back into the cars. Obviously under full course yellow, you're trying to maximise. You see the concertina effect there. Actually, it's really bunched up. That could have caught a few people out, but this restart's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, Marvin Kirchhofer really slowed the pace down on the Wellington Straight, and some of the cars behind weren't ready for it. But we are about to go racing then. I believe everybody has caught up to the safety car queue. There's quite a few, actually, of those more recent stoppers who I think are still trying to make their way around the track. And there's drama here for Mahiki. That's the 69 car that stopped at pit entry. So the 69 Mahiki Lotus, that was the second of the Mahiki Lotus in the running order, has stopped in pit lane. That won't stop the race from resuming, though, because it's off the track. And that's exactly what is happening now, as Marvin Kirchhofer leads the field across the line. It's Hugo Cook, of course, now in second place. That number 1 car did not pit, as the other Barwell car did, and there's contact, and off goes the 18. Maximilian Goetz was elbowed out of the way and has that damage. The 2C's Mercedes, he's coming back on the circuit. I'm not convinced he's at full racing speed, maybe just feeling the car out. It was Marcus Clutton up the inside making a bold move against the 18 machine. It's Kevin Say, of course, back in 18, isn't it? So they're actually a lap down, I believe, on the cars they were around, and Marcus Clutton was not hanging about.
How their race has come undone in the space of 20 minutes. They were literally on the heels of the leader, maybe on for an undercut, and just one badly timed FCY. Now they're at the back of the pack, fighting with cars, getting involved in contact. It's just funny how it goes.
Well, he's up the inside and Say sort of turned in. What's your take on that?
He was alongside the McLaren, and I think Kevin maybe just turned in on him a little bit. Maybe didn't see he was there. It can be quite hard at times. The visibility in these cars isn't always great. So, but yeah, still going though, isn't he?
Well, he is, hopefully undamaged. Let's see. We'll try and pick him out in a moment or two if we can. A good battle going on here. That's the number 7 Aston Martin. Johnny Adams still at the wheel. Now, he's going to try and move forward as much as he can in this stint. He's got the 25 BMW behind him. That's a lap down. And there, on the inside, went to the PhD in Aston Martin. It's getting very feisty. You've got this really interesting mix of Pro and Am. The GT4s are sort of dabbled in amongst the GT3s. We've got cars that are a lap down who probably have the pace to be up there fighting for the overall race lead, and it's difficult for the drivers to sort this out immediately after a safety car.
Yeah, there's a lot of speed differential going on here, and it's resulting in contact and bodywork flying around everywhere. So people will have to be keeping an eye out for bodywork on the track so you don't get a puncture. But yeah, pretty crazy restart, isn't it?
Johnny Adam up the inside of the sister Blackthorn car. That, as you'd expect, wasn't a particularly difficult overtake for him to make. That's 8th position now then. The 19 is being driven no longer by Claude Beauvais. It's now Charles Bateman in the second Blackthorn car, but Johnny Adam able to move past him fairly rapidly. Kirchhoff, a new fastest lap straight off the restarters in to serve the stop-go penalty, is the 6016 Parker Porsche. It's 158.929 then, the new fastest lap of the race for Kirchhoff. He's 1.8 seconds clear of Hugo Cook, who is nearly 4 seconds up on Kieran Jewis, up in 3rd position. So the 42 car really has bought itself some track position. Clutton 4th, Griffin 5th in the number 55 car. That's the Spirit of Race Ferrari inside the top 5. And Team ABBA Racing Sam Neary, birthday boy Sam Neary, there he is at the top of shot into the top 6. It's like a completely different race, this, James.
They're slowly coming into it, the Neary car, aren't they?
Yeah.
But the 66 car just served its penalty for the short pit stop, but that's put them completely out of contention now, isn't it?
Yes, I would imagine so, because I think they were at the back of the lead lap anyway, I think, weren't they? And now fall ever further back. This is the battle for 3rd place then. Kieran Jewis just ahead of Marcus Kluck. Kieran Jewis, the 2018 British Formula 4 champion. He was a winner, a champion indeed, in Porsche Carrera Cup GB a couple of years ago as well. Started his racing career, as a lot of drivers did on this grid, in the Ginetta Junior Championship, which celebrated its 500th race earlier on this morning. And Kieran Jewis was one of the stars in that championship back in 2017. Now, though, he is widely regarded as one of the quickest pro drivers on the British GT grid, and he's got one of the feistiest pro drivers in Marcus Clutton right in behind him. It's not only GT3, though, where there are good battles to be had. This, James, is the battle for the lead in GT4. Mahiki Racing no longer having things all their own way. Century Motorsports BMW, now in the hands of Charlie Robertson, is all over Aidan Neate, the race leader.
Yeah, that BMW in GT4 has looked strong all weekend, especially in quali. It looked very, very close to the Lotus, whereas at Donington, the Lotus had a clear gap, and the McLaren as well. So the BMW definitely stronger here at Silverstone. Looking at GT3, the race looks really interesting because, yes, you've got the McLaren and Kirchhoff are leading, but they've only done 1 stop. The next car to have done 2 stops is Harper, and yeah, just back onto the GT4 battle here. You've got the BMW closing on the Lotus, going for a late dive on the brakes, but not close enough.
Not quite close enough, no. The BMW of Charlie Robertson had a good run out of the loop, and then Aidan Neate just able to keep him behind into the braking zone at Brooklands. But Aidan Neate was not fastest in his portion of qualifying, in fairness. He was, I think, 4th quickest in the final part of GT4 qualifying. It was his teammate, really, who had the big advantage within the class, Josh Miller. So in this part of the race, I do expect Mahiki to have a little bit of a fight on their hands. Not far behind is Jack Brown either, 3rd place in the number 90 Optimum McLaren. As through goes the Honda NSX in GT3, the 86 car, still with Luke Garlick on board, and he's sort of wedged himself in between the leading 2 GT4 cars. But yeah, in this part of the race, this is the opportunity, really, isn't it, for the likes of Century and Optimum to put some pressure on Mahiki. It's going to be difficult to do when it's Josh Miller in the car, but Aidan Neate hasn't had quite the same advantage over the rest of the field.
Yeah, the pressure's on for that Lotus, and the GT3 traffic will not be helping. It's just one more thing in the mirrors to distract you and potentially forcing you to make a mistake, which could let the Beamer through. But he's putting the pressure on, he's showing his nose, he's trying to force a mistake out of the Lotus driver. Then you see the Ferrari off in the gravel. Oh,
the Ferrari from 5th position as well. So Matt Griffin, who had been doing really well in the top 5, he's off down at the club chicane, and that is a real shame. Now that's going to need recovery. That will surely be another full course yellow to get that car back out of the way. The team manager of car 78, by the way, summoned to race control. That's Barwell Motorsport, the car that made that extra pit stop, remember. Alex Martin's back in the car, but team manager's been summoned to race control. That is, as you alluded to earlier on, James, never usually a good sign, and that could be another drama heading towards one of our contending cars.
Yeah, and as you say, Mark Lemmer summoned to race control. Do you reckon they'll be more lenient with him as his birthday?
Oh, I doubt it very much.
No, do you not think that comes into it?
I don't think that will at all, no. Full course yellow is out, as we anticipated would be the case, and so the pace slows down once again. Well, the saying goes, yellows breed yellows, and unfortunately that was rather the case there. Not entirely sure how Matt Griffin ended up in the gravel trap down at the Club Chicane, but Matt, who was a class champion in British GT all the way back in 2003, his debut season in the championship, he's finished top 5 in the British GT Championship on 4 separate occasions. This, though, is how his latest appearance in the championship potentially ended. He got nearied, I'm afraid. Sam Neary to the inside into club, and the Ferrari just lazily drifted backwards into the gravel trap and got very much stuck in the gravel trap. The marshals now needed to push it out of the way. Sam Neary, well, we were just saying they were getting themselves back into it. That bit of contact they could have done without.
Yeah, real shame that for the Ferrari. Sometimes you can get going when you're in the gravel, but not in that case. But yeah, I was going to say a lot of pit stops should be happening now with this second FCY period of the race. I was just talking about the strategy a minute ago. So I think the Paradigm car is in a very strong position as it's the lead car in GT3 that's done 2 stops, and they're not that far off the lead. So you could even say they might be net leaders as of right now when it's all shaken out at the end.
Good point, actually, yes. And if we do now get a sort of brace of pit stops, then this will be pro drivers getting out of cars, AMs getting in. So that takes away that deficit that Paradigm maybe had by having Darren Leung in alongside all of the pros. We also saw there the 69 Lotus finally, after what seems like an age, being wheeled back into its garage. Bryn, what was the issue?
I'm not sure if you had done pictures pushing it down the pit lane. They're currently scurrying around the front right-hand side. You can see that there are about 3 or 4 bodies around it at the moment. I spoke to the team. They said they didn't know what the issue was when it was parked up at pit entrance, but they're currently looking under it right now. And I didn't see anything tyre-related or wheel-related, so it might be, suspension? I'm going to try and get a full answer for you because I appreciate this is a bit vague, but all I can tell you at this stage is that they're looking at the underside and just sort of manipulating parts of the car that shouldn't be manipulated. So give me a few seconds, I'll give you a full old answer if I can do.
In-depth reporting there from Bryn Lucas. Thank you, Bryn. Yeah, hard to tell exactly what it is, and I don't recall in all of the madness that the last 20 minutes or so has given us seeing that car involved in any contact, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a contact with another car. It could be a curb strike, it could be running out over the grass, or even just a failure. But either way, big shame, because that car, again, was a contender, I think, for a top 5 in class.
Yeah, and they've had, even at Donington, they were quick, but stuff happened to them in the race, which forced retirements and stuff like that. So, yeah, not ideal for the Lotus.
Not at all. Right then, full course yellow number 2. A chance for us to catch our breath. We've had a handful of people, as we said, coming into the pit lane. So Giacomo Petrobelli is now back on board car number 7. Darren Leung already, of course, was in the number 91 BMW, which we think is going to cycle up the order here quite significantly if we get some other cars coming into the pit lane. There is the number 42 car then. Kian Dewis still on board the 2Cs Mercedes, and the other 2Cs Mercedes, which seems to have got away with that bit of contact that it had with Marcus Clutton earlier on. Still circulating, but a long way down the order for Kevin Say. But that is the way that this race can pan out sometimes.
I'm surprised we've not seen more GT3s box, because especially the ones that have done 1 stop, because if they box now, they could do 65 minutes, and then they'll do the 3rd stop, the 3rd mandatory stop, and then they could do 65 minutes towards the end. And it's an FCY period. It makes sense, but no one opting for that strategy.
Well, I think it's just as simple as they hadn't got to the end of the lap yet. Now they are coming in. Look, Kirchhofer is in, so is Hugo Cook, I believe, looking at the live tracker. So I think it takes so long to get around this 3.7-mile circuit under full course yellow speed. I just think they hadn't got round to the pit lane yet. Now at their first opportunity, they are coming in, and this will now be a second mandatory driver change for the leading 2 cars. Now these 2 cars weathered the storm the first time round when we had a full course yellow. They managed to not really lose any time. In fact, car number 1 gained a chunk of time. Going to be interesting to see exactly what happens this time. Out then we'll get Cook in will get Collard momentarily. The fuel goes back in. Won't need a full tank, of course, because they've not that long been back into the pit lane. But it's another reason why I suppose that minimum pit stop time is there to take away any advantage or disadvantage to things like how much fuel is needed in the car, etc. Right, an update, I believe, of a Lotus variety from Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, it's hard to update what I did before because it was so in-depth, but I can tell you the lower arm, it's the ball joint on the lower arms, that's actually sheared off under no real reason. That's the issue. They were saying driving around, chasing the safety car, no curb strike, no contact or anything, it just let go. So not great from a Lotus point of view, but they're still looking at it, but essentially sheared away. So that is it for them for this race, and they'll have to go back and check every ball joint, I guess, ahead of the next race.
Right, okay, thank you, Bryn. Well, that's not good news. In a way, it's better sometimes if they can say, well, it was contact that caused it, or it was a curb strike. When it's just a straight-up failure like that, it's much more concerning to the team, especially given the fact they've got two other cars out there, presumably, running the same parts. The safety car's back out on track, so this full course yellow is going to turn into a safety car. That's going to be the order of the day whenever we have full course yellow periods, we've been told. And so we can expect a little bit of a delay here before racing resumes. The remaining, the 88 car is in, and driver there taking on, that's the driver from the other Mahiki car, I believe, taking on a supporting role in the pit lane because most of the rest of the team, James, are busy working on the other car in the pit garage.
I love that. I never got that opportunity when I was fully kitted up to get the lollipop on the go. That's wow, that's pretty cool. I like that. That's good.
88 there with fuel going on board. Marcus Clutton's back out of 67 to hand over to Simon Orange once again. And that McLaren trundles on down the pit lane. So we've now had most of our GT3 competitors come in. Not all of them, though. Again, we have had a bit of a split, I think, on this round of pit stops. The Nearies, I believe, have gone by without stopping. Sam Neary, of course, having been involved in that contact with Matt Griffin. We'll have to wait and see if anything comes from that. And in GT4, Mahiki Racing still leading the way. Now, 84 has been past the pit lane and not pitted, interestingly, whereas the rest of them have. So Sentry have pitted the 71. Mark Warren has come in the number 90. So this is a bold call then. Mahiki keeping 84 out from the race lead.
Yeah, I suppose that they're probably taking into account they've got a further 12 seconds to serve at the pit stop, so maybe they don't want to take that hit right now. But yeah, back to the part failure. That is racing in real life. Parts fail, and sometimes there's no explanation for it. And that was one of the big things for me when I went from the sim to real was random stuff like that would happen, and you're not really prepared for it. But really unfortunate for Mahiki.
I'm trying to get my head around this because remember this 84 car, it's a Silver Cup entrant, which means they've got that extra 12 seconds to serve in the pit lane. So it would make more sense, would it not, to do that whilst everyone's trundling around under full course yellow. So, but hey, we've been proven wrong already on strategy a few times today, so we won't speculate too much. We'll just put some faith in Mahiki Racing that they know what they're doing.
Unless they are trying to long out the driver's stint time, knowing it's a long full course yellow. Yes. Maybe they're doing what Dawson did half an hour ago.
Exactly so. Dawson, by the way, back into that 42 car now, of course. That, I think, was the 55, wasn't it, back in the garage? They were looking at the left rear corner, which had the collision with the Team Aber Racing Mercedes. But yes, you probably are right, actually. They can probably assume that by the time they next get around to the pit lane entry, the full course yellow will still be in effect. They won't have yet been released to catch up to the safety car. That's what they're hoping anyway. And they'll be able to complete that service next time by. And in doing so, buy themselves an extra 5 minutes or so of stint time for the next portion of the race. Amazingly, only about a quarter of an hour or so away from half race distance. It's flying by the Silverstone 500 as the Team Parker Racing crew watch on. Nick Jones in the 66 car now. And that is Sven Muller then watching on with interest to see how this car goes. It lost a lap, I think, didn't it, earlier on, or fell at least to the back of the lead lap anyway. And there Nick Jones continues on his way in the Team Parker Porsche. So we wait now. The next information we will have is that the safety car period has begun, and the field can then start catching up. The track is clear, of course, down at Club, so I can't imagine that's going to take too much longer. Interestingly, James, Sam Neary has gone past the pit lane again. He is the next car behind the safety car, so he is the race leader now, Sam Neary. But the Nearys, Team Aber Racing, there he is, look, choosing to really stretch this stint out. 97, Beechdean, well, that's going to be in second place at the moment, because they too have yet to make their second pit stop. And the number 19 machine the second of the Blackthorn Aston Martin, well, it's the lead Blackthorn Aston Martin at the moment, is going to move up into third position.
Yeah, and a few more cars boxing on this lap, so taking advantage of the full course yellow. For the 4 or 5 remaining GT3s that haven't boxed...
Safety car procedure. Safety car procedure. All cars, speed up, catch the safety car, please.
And there we go, that's the end of the full course yellow.
Yeah, so safety car procedure then begins as perhaps the race ends for the number 55 machine. That's a real shame for Matt Griffin, who just found himself inside the top 5. We're just starting to get excited at the prospect of a Ferrari running in the top 5 again, and all of a sudden found himself off the road in the gravel trap. He would be very, very disappointed with that indeed. And well, Duncan Cameron as well, who, in fairness, have had a pretty solid opening stint of the race as well. 27 is in, the NSX was back in as well, I spotted there. And we've actually just had a third pit stop of the race for the 74 Ferrari, but they can't possibly go from here to the end. So one of those stops must have been for a different issue of some sort. But yes, interesting then that now we are under safety car. We still have a handful of cars who have elected to stay out. But in fairness, you know, Aber, Beach Dean, the 19 Blackthorn car, they had nothing to lose because at the start of the race, they were buried in the back end of the pack. They might as well roll the dice now. Maybe they get another full course yellow a bit later on and they can make that extra pit stop and still make a net gain on track position.
Yeah, they might as well. And just seeing on the data here, the number 66 Porsche, Muller, been in the box 4 times already this race.
Yes.
When you take into account the penalties and stuff like that. But so they may well have made their 3 mandatory pit stops, but they're not going to be able to get to the end.
So that graphic on the screen now, the pit stop analysis, sort of shows what we've been talking about then, the number of pit stops for our leading cars. So Team Aber Racing, the leader, have yet to stop. Stella Motorsport have just come out of the pit lane, so they're not actually second place anymore. Beach Dean, Blackthorn, and then Paradigm. So significantly, Paradigm there, 5th position. That's actually going to be 4th place now that the Stella Audi has pitted. They are going to be the highest placed car to have made their 2 pit stops. And Darren Leung, no longer out there sharing the track with all of the pro drivers. He's surrounded by AMs, but he's ahead of them all now, pretty much, at least those on the same strategy.
They're looking strong. I mean, we saw in the first stint the pace wasn't there, so that could be their undoing, but strategy-wise, they've nailed it. They look in the strongest position right now, but there's still over half the race to go, isn't there? So.
Well, yes, indeed. And look how many twists and turns we've had in the strategy so far. This, meanwhile, is the GT4 picture. Now, this is a bit more straightforward because everyone apart from Mahiki, pretty much, the 84 Mahiki car, have now made their 2nd pit stop. So most of the GT4 field on the same strategy, apart from, interestingly, the car that's led pretty much the whole race.
Not good for them. Yeah, you would have thought they'd do it under this FCY period, but they missed that off. They've missed that window now. But yeah, they're going to be really lacking behind when they make that 2nd stop.
12 Team Parker car showing 2nd on that list, but that's because they've only just pitted, so they will drop down the order. So that will mean it's 71 and 90 who come up into 2nd and 3rd, and 17 into 4th. That's been the running order, really, hasn't it?
Safety car in this lap. All cars, please catch the safety car. Safety car's coming in this lap.
Peter Daly then from race control. Safety car in this lap. Released back into the race is the Team Parker number 12 machine. Seb Morris at the wheel. But yeah, this car will have, I suppose, a reasonably healthy lead, although the safety car will bunch the GT4 pack back together. But Aidan Neat is still owing us a 2nd pit stop, really. Be interested to see actually where the 2nd placed 71 BMW is in relation to 84. It's going to be some way further down the queue, I believe. Yeah, a net gain, I'd say, for those who have made their 2nd stop. Right then, we're going to go racing again at the end of this lap. We commented on the last restart how jumbled the order was. Even more the case now, James. A chance, maybe, that we could end up with another full course yellow in the near future?
That's the thing, isn't it? You know, you have bunched up cars, and then you're more likely to have an accident. FCY comes out, safety car restart, and it's just a cycle until you get a clean start, and then you can break that cycle. But this is what we're talking about at the start of the race. It's not about how quick you are in the Silverstone 500. All of the strategy stuff we've been talking about for the last half an hour, if as a team you can nail that, that's the key. And I think we're starting to see that, especially with the Paradigm car.
Yeah, and what you try and look for, I suppose, is a little bit of consistency. Which teams, through all of the twists and turns, keep finding themselves near the front? And really, it is the 91, 77 and 1. I'd say they're the only three that have never really dropped out of the top half dozen or so, even with all of the full course yellows and the varying pit strategies. 91 have benefited so far, but they're not going to have a huge advantage. They're only a couple of cars ahead of 77. Morgan Tilbrook now into the 77. We still have a Ferrari in the top 5 as well. It's the 28 car that started stone dead last in GT3, the Spirit of Race number 28 machine. That car inside the top 5 now with Francesco Castellacci, the Italian driver, on board. But of course, a pit stop down on everybody else. So, Sam Neary now has the opportunity to restart the race. Again, he is bunching them all up, now steps on the loud pedal turning into Brooklands. He's got the 97 Beach Team machine of Tom Wood behind him. And Tom Wood, a silver graded driver, and Sam Neary just ahead of him. Well, say just ahead, has already scarpered up the road, actually. Across the line they will go. And Sam Neary then with a decent advantage. And actually, it's the number 18 lapped car, isn't it, that's second in queue. So the third car in line is actually second position. The car to watch, though, I think is going to be that red and black BMW, isn't it, as Darren Leung tries to go up there and challenge maybe for the race lead. Is it a clean run through Copse Corner this time? So far, so good. There goes the 7 Blackthorn Aston Martin of Giacomo Petrabelli. He's got Simon Orange in the McLaren not far ahead. They cycle then through Maggots and Beckett's. There, the leading GT4 car is overtaken by Rob Collard in the number 1 Barwell Lamborghini. And Rob has got that 42 Mercedes right behind. So through all of this, 42 have put themselves up there with the likes of Optimum and Barwell, haven't they? So they're not out of this yet.
Coming back into it, and without the use of the wave bar, which we talked about earlier, it's put some big gaps between the GT3s as they've had to carve their way through random bits of GT4 traffic on this restart. So an extra challenge for all of them out there right now.
It certainly is, but this one has been a, dare I say it, slightly calmer restart. I think a lot of the GT4 cars, because they
has a
pitted quite late.
drive-through penalty. Car 1, a drive-through penalty for overtaking under yellows.
That was it? With a drive-through penalty. So Rob Collard for overtaking
Car
the
18,
yellow flag.
car 1-8. You have a drive-through penalty for overtaking under yellows. Car 1-8.
And another car falling foul to the same rule then. And so, yeah.
Car 78. 78, you have a 1 second stop-go penalty for a short pit stop. Car 78.
Well, that's the other Barwell Lamborghini now, so it's all unravelling for Barwell. Both of their cars getting penalties for different reasons there, James. Car 18 overtaking under yellow as well. That is the car that appears to be actively defending at the moment from a car that's a lap ahead of it. Kevin Say here trying his best to keep Tom Wood behind. Bronze-graded driver against silver, so Wood in the Aston Martin should have the advantage. The 18 car's got a penalty to serve anyway. A whole raft of penalties. The two most significant ones, though, no doubt the Barwell cars. Very rare for one Barwell car to get a penalty, for them both to pick up a penalty at the same time. That is very uncharacteristic.
Yeah, that's a rough lap for Barwell, but it must have been under the FCY, and we hopefully should see a replay on that.
Yes, so we mentioned earlier on, James, that the number 1 car gained a lot of time heading to the pit lane. This was the first round of pit stops. There's a flashing yellow light in the distance, James, and the number 1 Lamborghini blasts past the GT4 McLaren.
That is so unfortunate because it just came at the wrong moment. It just caught him out, and he probably wasn't thinking about it either. So really bad timing there for the Barwell car.
And that was the 18 going past the 24. We did see that live, and I saw you raise your eyebrow at that because it was heading into a yellow flag zone. That's why the 18 Mercedes picked up the penalty. Well, okay, that explains it then. It gives us an answer to a question we had about an hour ago as to how the number 1 car had gained such a significant amount of time. Well, it did so illegally, unfortunately. Right, on track, this for 4th position. And it is Darren Leung then on the attack, trying to find a way past the number 19 car of Charles Bateman. So Charles Bateman then 4th position in the Aston Martin, the 91 BMW behind. Leung, having got past Castellacci then, is now up into 4th position and trying to convert that into 3rd. Looks for a good exit then from the loop, not quite close enough for the time being. And as they head down the Wellington Straight, this might be where the move comes. He's in the slipstream of the Aston Martin towards Brooklands corner. Leung peaks to the inside, not quite able to make the move stick for now. This, meanwhile, is Dawson having just got past Simon Orange. So Charles Dawson then now up into 8th position, although the 67 car coming back at him. This is an all-out battle, remember. They've got the number 7 of Giacomo Petrobelli behind as well. Petrobelli desperately trying to regain some ground and will do so, because into the gravel goes Simon Orange, through goes Petrobelli, and that was in the end made fairly easy for the Blackthorn Aston Martin driver, who picks up 9th position. So lots of action as you'd expect immediately after the safety car restart. Car 18 has come in to serve its penalty. It's not the only car that's going to have to come in to serve a penalty, of course. We heard both of the Barwell Lamborghinis will also be summoned into the pit lane fairly shortly. One man who might have an opinion on that is stood right next to me. Ricky Collard's joined us in at commentary, and Ricky, your father, I'm afraid his race was going quite well, but a penalty is going to sort of unravel that now, isn't it?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me in the booth today. And yeah, the old boy is going to be fired up now, that's for sure. We saw a great stint in the first stint. I can't believe we went from 8th up to, what was it, 2nd? So, yeah, all that hard work has now gone back to square one, and we're halfway through the race. So if he can, he's definitely going to have to make a few more overtakes now.
I was talking to him yesterday, and he, post-injury, was saying he was still quite nauseous in the car. So I presume in quali, he wasn't getting the most out of himself, and there was more to come. Do you think today he's feeling a lot better, or?
Yeah, massively. I've actually been watching over from the BRDC, so I managed to have all the facts and figures in front of me. But apparently, he was the fastest AM. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the first stint.
Yeah, so it shows, if your head's in the right place, and you got to remember, Ferrari having a little look there down the inside the BM. Is the BM going to get the traction out the corner? But yeah, no, he's not. He feels a little bit nauseous. He's still getting used to the car, but once that race, the green flag drops in the race, it's a different feeling, and you can kind of park that. So remember, qualifying so short as well. So,
yeah.
But Darren's looking very fast, isn't he, right now behind the Aston?
He certainly is. Wants to try and take 3rd place away now. Darren Leung on a charge. He seems to have a bit more grip maybe available to him in the Paradigm Motorsport BMW. Has to be careful though of the Ferrari behind, which is also trying to buy into this battle. That is Francesco Castellacci in the Spirit of Race Ferrari. A 3-way battle then raging on for 3rd place. I'm guessing you've not had any chance then to catch up with the old man during the race to get his thoughts on this. How odd is it for you to be sat on the sideline sort of watching, as he comes in now to serve the penalty?
It went up to 1st then, so he's obviously maximised his pit entry. I hope he hasn't maximised it too much, but mate, as a feeling, this is the worst feeling as a driver. Going down there, it feels like an eternity.
50 kilometres an hour is not good, is it?
Mate, especially when you, like you say, you're driving around at 140, 150 mile an hour nearly, and this is a great feeling though. When you release the pit limiter, that's when you really feel the how quick these GT3 cars are. But it'd be great to get some more onboard shots, because coming through the traffic now is going to be really, really good. But saying that, you've got a lot of fast drivers that are quite mixed up. The grid is
Car 25, drive-through penalty, full course yellow, speeding.
Right, that's the Century Motorsport 25 BMW speeding behind the full course yellow. The penalty's coming in thick and fast at the moment. How do you find it sat trackside watching then as your old man's racing out there? We'd love to have you in the race. Can you actually relax and enjoy yourself when you're here but not in the car?
Yeah, it's obviously, my dad unfortunately couldn't do Alton Park. Oh, sorry, not Alton Park. We did it at Donington, didn't we? The first round at Donington. But look, it's, I deeply miss racing. I'd love to be out there, especially being a rookie champion and seeing the car now with the number 1. That would be such a cool feeling to just at least be able to drive a couple laps with number 1 on the side. But at the same time, it's great to see my dad out there with Hugo, and Hugo's also doing a fantastic job as well, so that's great. And the Barwell squad is that Ollie Webb, or is that
24 up the inside of the NSX? Who's in the 24 now? It's so far down the order, trying desperately to dig its way back into contention. Didn't get the move made down at Stowe Corner on that occasion, though. The NSX, which we know has been rapid in a straight line, should now be able to scarper away down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight and build that gap up once again. We saw the emotion from Rob in particular at the end of last year. It meant so much to him, that championship. He's won the series before, but to do it last year, full family effort. Exactly what did that mean to him?
Mate, it was a dream come true, even for me, as a rookie in British GT, and my first year back racing GTs after driving a front-wheel drive touring car. You can't, you cannot describe. I think the GT3 car's got to be around the GP circuit, 20, 30 seconds a lap quicker than touring cars. So I remember when I done my first test day, after being in a front-wheel drive touring car, to then go back into a GT3 car, my eyes were on stalks, that's for sure. But now to do it as a family and to win the championship, and we kind of knew financially we could only make it work for 1 year. So there was a lot riding on it. That's why I'm not in the car this year. We'd love to be driving if we had enough sponsorship and the opportunity was there. But unfortunately, it's not. That's the business of motorsport and the frustrating part of motorsport. Like I say, I'd do anything to be out there racing with my dad in the #1. But to be able to have one shot at it, one chance, one opportunity, and take it and be a champion, I can retire now and live and sit down at the bar at the BRDC and say, oh yeah, I'm the champion I'm the current champion.
Yes, enjoy that for the rest of the season, Ricky. I'm sure you will. Quick GT4 update here. This is for third position, the battle we're watching now. Mark Warren in the number 90 car and Brendan Templeton in the Century BMW had closed right in, actually, over the back end of the previous lap. Wasn't in the end able to keep that pressure going, and now traffic starts to get in the way a little bit. But these Century BMWs, James, they continue to be a factor in this race. Ramyeed second, Templeton fourth position. We saw the pace out of them in qualifying. Are you surprised at the fact they're able to keep this up through a race distance?
Not really. I think the BMW always seems to be good in the race, but I've got a question for Ricky while he's here. So we were talking about strengths and weaknesses earlier about the different cars. Although they're all GT3s, they're all different. With the Lambo, what's the strengths and what's the weaknesses from your experience?
I think with the Lamborghini, it's there. It's always there or thereabouts, and that's a credit to the team as well. But
it's like a 7 out of 10 all the time sort of thing?
Yeah. It's not, if you're at the bar, she's a good 7 out of 10. She's not quite a 10 out of 10, but she's consistent. But the Lambo is just always there. And we never really had any super lightning fast times. We were just consistent, didn't make mistakes, and yourself, that's what makes you win championships.
Yeah.
And
around Silverstone?
Around Silverstone, well, this is the thing. This time last year, we were in the lead 15 seconds. We thought we kind of had one hand on the trophy. And then that late full course yellow and safety car came out, which unfortunately shuffled us back to the back of the field. But it's the Lambo's really good in mixed conditions.
Okay.
And obviously, being in the UK, we always have
a lot of that. Yeah.
We have our fair share of gambles with the weather. So it is good. I've driven obviously the BMW, the Lamborghini, the Ferrari, the Aston Martin. But
which one's your favourite?
I don't know. If I'm honest, probably I love the Aston.
Okay.
I really like the Aston. I won overall in GT World Challenge in that car, and it's got such a small operating window, whereas the operating window for the Lambo is quite big. It's like what you were talking about yesterday when I watched qualifying. You're discussing about how small that window is on that Ferrari, for example. Or sorry, the Porsche, I think you were saying yesterday.
The Porsche,
The Lambo, I'm not kidding you, mate, honestly. We just kind of...
Car 8 has a 10-second stop-go penalty for contact with car 55 at T8.
That is the race leader, Sam Neary, being given a penalty now. We sort of saw that one coming, I think, really. That slightly clumsy moment down at the club chicane. So Sam Neary, the latest front-running driver, to be handed a penalty. That's a shame, because since the safety car restart, which wasn't that long ago, they'd built up, or Sam Neary had built up a 7.5-second cushion over the second-place Beach Dean Aston Martin. That all now comes to nothing, and they will head to the pit lane momentarily. We've been enjoying this entertaining GT4 battle. There is the race leader, Sam Neary. James, that's not a huge surprise, I don't think, is it?
No, we were talking about it earlier. It's all right having the risky sort of mindset, but if you do go too far, that's what happens. You get damage or you get a penalty in this instance. So you've got to find that balance between being fairly assertive, but not, too much.
Here is that assertive move. Ricky, you, as you mentioned, had a stint in the British Touring Car Championship. That looks familiar, doesn't it?
I'll tell you what, it was late. It's hard, mate, because, when you commit in these cars, they've got ABS. So you you physically can't stop. It's a horrible feeling when you've kind of gone in a bit deep, as you know yourself, and it's like it's not like a
passenger.
Yeah, an old car where you can then bang it down the gears a bit harder. These cars have all got technology with flappy paddles, ABS, traction control. There's not a lot you can really do, unfortunately. So I do feel sorry for him. But I'll tell you one thing that's really interesting. 7.5 seconds he's pulled out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's quick. Yeah.
if even though they have got this penalty, you know, I'm sure this won't be the last safety car we're going to see. They're going to bunch him back up again, and both the Nearies are looking pretty quick out there.
They are indeed. Back to the battle then for third position. Bateman, Leung, Castellacci, and there's a fourth car now starting to join the party. That is Morgan Tilbrook, who led, remember, throughout his first stint of the day. Tilbrook is the second highest placed car that's made two pit stops. So he's on the same strategy, roughly, as Darren Leung in the BMW. The fact that Darren's getting sort of boxed in behind the number 19 Aston Martin is playing right into the hands of the Optimum McLaren. There goes Sam Neary. He's been released from the penalty box, back underway, and the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes AMG will rejoin the race, but behind this battle. So this now means they're actually fighting, James, for a position inside the podium places.
Yeah, really, that's where at the sharp end, isn't it? But yeah, really harsh penalty for Neary. You know, 10-second stop-go penalty. You know, you'd think maybe a drive-through, but that's a real tough one. I suppose it was a late move, but
that is the problem. And from a race director's perspective, what Peter Daly's looking at has unfortunately taken that Ferrari out of the race.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you've got to sort of.
You're not taking Sam completely out of the race, but you may as well, unfortunately. So. But look, there's a couple of beaten up battered cars, especially the ice cream delivery man, Mr. Hatton. He is the ice cream man. That's how I describe him to people. I was like, yeah, just the ice cream man. Just.
Has he got a little siren on board?
Do you know what? I'd love to see a little. If he could, when he wins his championship, which I'm sure he's going to do because he's looking really good out there. It'd be great if he had a little ice cream siren on the side of the Aston, wouldn't it?
Well, he's going well at the moment. I was going to give you a look at what the pit strategy was, but this is all kicked off now. All of a sudden, Castellacci has nipped up the inside of Darren Leung, so Leung actually losing a place there.
Wait, here he comes though. He's going to the outside. Is he going to get it all the way around the outside?
Oh, it's going to be close. He's not got the inside into the loop, and Castellacci almost launches to the inside of Bateman as well.
But he's going to get the cut back.
Oh, he's not quite got the traction off the corner, has he? So Castellacci then, opportunistic stuff there, managed to pick up an extra position. But look, they're on different strategies. The number of pit stops that we're showing on that timing tower, it is one pit stop for 97 Aston Martin, one pit stop for the 19 Aston Martin, whilst Leung and Tilbrook, number 77, have made two. So really, the race is between those two cars at the back of the group, 91 and 77. They're on the same strategy, and now Morgan Tilbrook is right there, James, with Darren.
This is the net lead, isn't it? The battle for the lead. Yeah. So in an hour's time, this could well be pivotal for the race win. So at the minute, the BMW's got the upper hand. It's going to be a hard car to overtake because the Beamer is always quick on the straights, isn't it? But
sorry, just quickly, what was really interesting when you saw him try to go for the cutback there?
Car 78, drive-through penalty for a pit stop infringement. Car 78, drive-through.
That's the second penalty for 78 and the third penalty for Barwell. Mark Lemmer's birthday is getting better and better. I mean, Ricky, you know this better than most. Barwell Motorsport do not make mistakes like this very often, do they?
Absolutely not. I'm sure, you know, it's just such a shame to see because the pair of them at the moment, 12th and 14th, after being, you know, Alex was third, my dad was second. They were right up there in the mix. It just shows you cannot make mistakes in British GT. And, you know, one man that's very consistent all the time is, you know, the BMW that we're talking about for leading. But one thing I just wanted to quickly stop was I thought the BM was going to get the cutback then, coming out of the loop. The loop, yeah, but the BM, with it being front-engined, and the Ferrari being rear-engine, and this was the thing with the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini is really good, like in tight, twisty sections and with really good traction. Yeah. That's where the BM struggles. The BM is blindingly quick in the first sector where it's all high speed. He's going to have a look down the inside, and here he goes.
Oh, decisive move up the inside from Castellacci. Runs the 19 out wide, and that is an opportunity for Leung as well. Darren Leung, really good opportunistic driving, read the situation well and picked up almost a freebie there, really. Castellacci, though, with some supreme confidence under braking. That must be a lovely feeling as a driver because, you know, especially around here at Silverstone, it's those big stopping points. That's where you make your overtakes.
But the battle is far from over now as we've got a GT4 car. Is Darren going to go to the outside? This is the thing. Do you go to the outside or do you stick to the inside?
Well, they've all sort of got boxed in behind the Mahiki Lotus there, really.
Probably could have got around the outside there, Darren, if he read it a bit better. But here he goes. He's got good track, or good good straight line speed, but oh, it's a shame the Ferrari's gone in, because that was looking like a really spicy battle, wasn't it, guys?
That was good stuff, wasn't it? But yeah, Castellacci then bails for the pit lane, interestingly. There goes Tilbrook nipping to the inside of the Mahiki Lotus. So Castellacci pits then, presumably to hand back over to Marcos Vivian in the spirit of race Ferrari. This battle then can continue onwards. So we've now got the 97 Beechdean Aston Martin leading the way. Darren Leung's BMW 14 or so seconds behind. This is the battle for second between Leung, Bateman and Tilbrook, as the Silverstone 500 has now ticked over into its second half. Sadly, doesn't look like being Barwell Motorsports year this year, but there are still plenty of other contenders for the race victory. Ricky, it's probably about time we let you go on and enjoy whatever the afternoon has in store for you. What does the rest of the race look like for you?
Well,
oh no, that's 84. That is 84 from the lead of GT4. We'll get back to that, Ricky. 84 off. That looks like it's on the exit of Farm. It's a long way off the road, and the car that has been dominating in GT4 so far is off the circuit, going no further. This surely is going to be another full course yellow, but what on earth has happened there?
Well, just having a brief look, there looks like there's a bit of door mirror there. There's cars still going side by side in potentially a yellow flag zone, as we see the Merc there going down the inside. Is that a yellow flag in there, or is it green? I'm not sure, but...
Well, if it was yellow, that will be a penalty. It doesn't matter whether it's a lapped car that you are passing. You are not allowed to overtake in the yellow flag zone. We are being told to prepare for a full course yellow. There is the full course yellow.
And there you see another take.
Oh, yeah, the 42. It's all got very, very congested because the Jolt McLaren, the GT4 McLaren, had seen the yellow flags and the full course yellow boards, and some of the GT3 cars had not. I fear that we have not seen our last penalty for yellow flag infringements in this race. Well, before it all kicks off in the pit lane, Ricky, which I'm sure it will in a moment, we thank you for joining us. What are you going to head off and do for the last hour of the race?
I'm going to stay as far away from Peter Daly for the next 10 minutes because he's going to have his hands full. But no, it's just really nice to come along, enjoy the British GT, and like I say to any of the fans that are watching, it is a great event. It really is special, and you know, I'm just going to go and enjoy myself, go and have a little bit of a watch, maybe have a beverage, and I'll be back at work tomorrow morning.
Have one for us, Ricky. Ricky, thank you so much for joining us in the commentary box. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ricky Collard, everyone, then. Yeah. I have to say, the 20 minutes or so that he spent up here in the commentary box were absolute carnage. So maybe if we ever do have a quiet British GT race in the future, that's the trick. We'll bring Ricky in on commentary. That seems to ignite the race. And, well, ignite it absolutely has, James. I can't really quite believe what we're seeing. We're just into the second half of the race. A third full course yellow. And it's for the 84 car of all cars. Never saw that coming. 91 is in. Out of the race, though, is 84. That I did not see coming.
Neither did I. I think that's a crucial pit stop for the 991 car, or the 91 car, sorry, because that's their third driver change.
Correct.
And in theory, they won't have to make any more stops, but there's 1 hour, 18 minutes to go, so there's no way they get into the end.
Yeah.
So they might have to come in and do a driver stint reset with around 15 minutes to go, something like that, which will be quite interesting.
Yes, provided they are not going to go over the maximum driver time for Dan Harper. He can stay in till the end of the race, but as you said, no more than 65 minutes at a time. He can come into the pit lane, stop in the pit box, and then go again. That would reset his driver time. He doesn't necessarily have to get out of the car. So, Mahiki Racing's 3-car effort looks as though it's down to a 2-car effort, and this perhaps the most high-profile exit of them all, and something's already broken on the left rear, James.
Suspension, does it? Maybe one of those ball joints that took the Lotus out potentially.
Very good point. Very good point. We did say, didn't we, that that would be a concern for the team.
Nothing the driver can do there, though.
No, and of all the places for it to happen as well, that's one of the fastest corners on the track, out of Abbey, into Farm. Luckily, there's lots of runoff area, but that, I'm sure, would have caught his attention.
Yeah, not ideal, but it might well not be one of the ball joints, just speculation. Yeah. But, yeah, 2 of those Mahiki Lotuses out. It's just such a shame. They're so quick, but they seem to struggle to make the end, which is whether it's their fault or not. Last time they got taken out by the Aston Martin in Donington, and this time it seems to be mechanical failures.
What this means for GT4 is that Century Motorsport now lead the way. In fact, they've got 2 cars in podium places. 71 in the hands of Ravi Ramyeed leads the class. Mark Warren for Optimum Motorsport is second. And then it is Brandon Templeton in the 14 Century BMW that inherits 3rd position, as we have possibly the biggest drama of the race so far. The loss of car 84, which has dominated proceedings in GT4 from the moment qualifying began, quite frankly, yesterday afternoon. So, full course yellow is out then. We've had a pit stop for Dan Harper. We've had a second pit stop now for the number 19 Blackthorn Aston Martin as well. Claude Beauvais jumps back in, but they still owe us a third pit stop. This is the only car, though, that has, we believe anyway, completed all 3 of its mandatory driver changes. So the 91 Paradigm Motorsport car, something about this car, this driver combination, and this race, they find their way to the front.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think a lot could still happen in the remaining 1 hour and 15 minutes, but if nothing happens to this car, I can't see it really being beaten. With the strategy they're on, it's no surprise, you know, that they are, I think, one of the most analytical teams when it comes to data, so it would make sense that they're on the optimal strategy for this sort of race. So they're looking really strong for now. Still plenty of things that can go wrong, traffic, mechanical failures. Where's this weather that I thought was going to come on? It's still really nice weather, which is so unlike the UK, but looks like there's not going to be any rain, which was speculated at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm sort of happy about that, though, really. We've had enough drama as it is without inclement weather. Yeah, for now, at least in the dry conditions, well, the spectators are enjoying it and getting a bit of a suntan, maybe. Right then, drama for Mahiki Racing, as we've seen. 84 car in the hands of Aidan Neate out of the race. His teammate, Josh Miller, is in the pit lane catching up with Brim.
Yeah, I was in the garage when Josh received the final news that Aidan had got out of the car, and it's very frustrating for you given the performance, but it seems to be a component failure, which is not great, seeing as we had one already in the other car.
Honestly, it's gutting for everyone. The team's done an incredible job this weekend, and ultimately, this was our race to win. So it's devastating, but from Aidan's side, he did nothing wrong. We believe it was a component failure on the rear axle. We were initially hoping that we could have a live snatch and carry on, but the damage is, I think, too extensive.
Yeah, we have a slight delay on the screen behind, but we're going to have a look at that as well. I'm sure they'll bring it up in a few moments so you can see when it actually went wrong and completely let go. And it was a worrying moment as well when those sort of things happen.
Yeah, it was for sure, especially through the high-speed nature of this section of the circuit when the car's under so much load at the rear. Ultimately, we're lucky there's some runoff there and the gravel trap behind, but yeah, it's a devastating end to what could have been an amazing weekend for the whole team.
Yeah, I mean, devastated as you are, the plus points, I suppose, that you will have to take from this is that, first of all, Aidan's okay. I mean, it's clearly a component failure there. There was nothing else going on, and Aidan was a complete passenger as we see that car spinning around. But it is a case of your pace in the car is still very, very promising for the rest of the season.
For sure, yeah. Look, we know the car and the team, we know we have good pace overall, and it's promising for the next round. So, obviously, all eyes forward now.
All right, well, get yourselves ready for the next one, all right?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Josh.
Well, absolute heartbreak for Mahiki Racing. And there you can see it written on the face of Josh Miller. That is a race win that has slipped through their fingers in fairly dramatic fashion. Lucky, really, that when that happened to Aidan Neate, there weren't any other cars around. The way the car speared back across the track, that could have been an awful lot worse than it was. Right, pit stop for Beechdean here. So Tom Wood handing back over to Andrew Howard. That is their second pit stop now, so that kind of resets their strategy, puts them back in line with the other teams now, which is the majority of the rest of the field, who have made 2 stops. They were a stop behind, really, up to this point. So that means now that this car leads the way. It is the Optimum Motorsport number 77, back in the hands of Morgan Tilbrook. So he's found his way back to the front as he was in his initial stint of the race. But again, once we go racing, after presumably a brief safety car period, he's going to have some defending to do. He'll have the 42 car of Charles Dawson and the number 7 of Giacomo Petrobelli in behind him. So Petrobelli in the 7 car back up towards the pointy end of the field. Now Dan Harper driven, number 91 by the way, still on the lead lap, having made that final pit stop. They are in 11th position at the moment, showing us 2 minutes off the lead. But of course, James, when the safety car comes out, that will come down to 10 seconds or so, and they are done with their driver changes. One more pit stop required, as we've said, but done with driver changes.
That's it, and it's effectively a drive-through because they'll come in, stop, kill the engine, start the engine, get going again. So they lose minimal time. So really strong position for them. Real shame for the Mahiki Lotus, and just hearing Josh Miller in that interview there, gutted, understandably. When you've got a championship with as little rounds as British GT, if you're not finishing the first 2, when you're trying to put together a whole championship campaign, it's a real wounder, and it's a shame because they're so fast. They're fast enough to win every race by the looks of it, but it's just that reliability and that sort of longevity and getting to the end of the races which seems to be their undoing at the minute.
Yeah, it does really, doesn't it? But hey, that is motor racing, and the team will learn from it, of course. But yeah, my word, that was a dramatic moment. And
to finish first you must finish, eh?
Especially in this race, more than perhaps any other. So the 3-hour race at Silverstone is a race of attrition. I think you used that phrase earlier on, and it's proving to be once again. It felt like we had a pretty calm and orderly first 45 minutes or so. The middle hour and a half has just been one thing after another, hasn't it? And who knows, with another safety car restart coming shortly, the same could happen again. Right, the Nearies were briefly leading the race before Sam had that collision down at the club chicane with a 55 Ferrari. That penalty, the subsequent penalty, has knocked them down the order, but they've still had a lot to smile about, I hope. The pace has been there throughout the race so far, and Bryn has made his way down towards the Team ABBA Racing garage.
Yeah, the pace has been there to a degree. Mark Lemmer's birthday today, and they've got loads and loads of penalties, and it's your birthday as well, 23. First of all, happy birthday to you, Sam. It's not the birthday you'd really want, though, with the penalties coming your way, and the performance too.
Yeah, I mean, the car's got pace. I think we've got the second fastest race lap there, so the car's clearly quick. And yeah, I was racing Matt, and it's like that with the pros. I had pace, I was catching him a lot, and I saw on the lap before he was a bit slow in the braking zone there, so I went for a move, and I believe I got to his rear wheel, and he turned in. But you know, it is what it is. It's done now. You know, I can say my mistake. I'm just apologise to the team. You know, it's not what we wanted, but we got a free pit stop there on the full course yellow, which others haven't got yet. So it's not over yet, and the car's clearly got the pace to make the overtakes, and maybe I won't try it into Vale again.
You told me before the race that you'd had a few issues with the car over the week, really, with gearbox problems yesterday in practice, really putting you back in quali. How's the car feeling now? You went back to last year's setup, is my understanding.
Yeah, we went to the setup that we were running on the test days here, which we knew was efficient, and we always have a quali setup anyway. We took a gamble, and we believe we stalled the aero underneath the car, so the car just had no grip, basically, in high speed. And the pace today clearly shows that it's back to normal. Turn 1's still a little loose, and same with Abbey, but I think everyone's struggling there when you follow people. It's a hot climate, hot day, and it's that sort of conditions. We can make a little adjustment in the next pit stop, and hopefully we can try and take that fastest lap and have a good birthday.
I've heard, that's sort of the ultimate thing, have a good birthday, but I've heard a few drivers say that it feels quite slow out there, the track is quite slow. What are you putting that down to?
It is slow, and the track conditions all weekend have been quite bad with the GB3s, GB4s going out, but we're now running for a long time, so it can't be that. I think it's just the track temp, and these new Pirelli tyres don't like the heat as much. They sort of are really good in cold conditions, but as soon as it gets hot, they struggle quite a bit. So it's about managing it. You got to drive within yourself, and that's where the lap time comes. So it'll be an interesting final stint. Hopefully that penalty doesn't cost us anything.
Ultimately, it's like a bit of cake and some fizz. So off you go, and thanks very much, Sam.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryn. Yeah, good to hear from Sam, and good to hear him taking responsibility for that incident down there as well. Said he'd apologise to the team. He is that kind of guy, though, Sam Neary, isn't he? Really, he's very honest, always very generous with his time with us as well, and we thank him for that. And hey, they're not completely out of it. These safety cars are going to keep on bunching the field together. Car 42 there leaving the pit lane, so that was Charles Dawson coming in to hand back over to Kian Jewis then. That is their third pit stop of the race. They're 68 minutes from the end of the race, though. Now, would it not maybe have been worth waiting the extra 3 minutes, get within 65 minutes of the end, and then they could have kept Kian Jewis in right to the end of the race? Maybe they were fuel limited, not sure. But anyway, they have released that car out onto the circuit just as the full course yellow switches over to safety car period. So the field bunches back up behind the Lotus safety car, which at this rate will be the only Lotus still running at the end of the 3 hours. There is one of the Mahiki cars still in the race. You can see it there actually towards the front of the safety car queue. The 88 machine currently sits 7th in GT3, just the 88 car in the hands of Ian Duggan. What's the picture going to look like then when we go racing with just over an hour of the Silverstone 500 to go? Will be Morgan Tilbrook in the 77 car leading the way. There you can get a clearer picture of the story. 77 leads but has made only 2 pit stops. The 42 car is no longer in second position, but they have made 3 stops in the race. I think I'm right in saying they were all driver changes, weren't they? I don't think they've served a penalty in this one, but they have dropped down the order anyway from second. Blackthorn, therefore, will be second, the number 7 car. 67 in third position. Fourth for Paddock Motorsports, number 9, all of them on 2 stops. Barwell's number 1 has pitted 3 times, but 1 was a penalty, and all of that is now out of date because as they come past pit entry, they're all coming in. So in come all of the leading cars. And
so it looks like the number 42 is in a stronger position than we originally thought.
They've done all of their to catch the safety car. The safety car is coming in this lap.
Safety car in this lap.
Yeah. So that number 42 is in a very strong position. The net leaders, like the 91, they'll have to do not a splash and dash at the end, but a stint reset with 5 or 10 minutes to go. So they've gone under the radar. I've missed their progress, but they are looking really good, actually.
Yep, and we believe they have made 3 genuine pit stops, so that's it for driver changes, but we are, as we've said, just outside that 65-minute window. However, with the safety car coming in next time by, do they have time maybe to pop in and do the reset and then send Kian Jewis back on his way? The car should be fueled enough to go to the end. The GT4 car's also coming in, so we've got the 71 car in from the lead, 90, which is just the second car from the end of pit lane, the yellow and white McLaren. They were second place in class in the 14 BMW.
Car 27, you are the leader.
In front of 71 is in third place. This is all for podium places, the top 3 places in GT4. 71 down off the jacks, but of course can't go anywhere until that minimum pit stop time has elapsed.
Car 30, you are being signalled to overtake the safety car. Car 30, overtake the safety car.
There is car 30 not yet overtaking the safety car. A difficult situation for drivers to be in here, though, sometimes, because I mean, we're struggling to keep up with who the leader is and where everyone is in the running order. When you're out there partway through a stint, it's hot, it's busy, you think a safety car period is a chance to catch your breath. There's still things to think about.
There is. You've got the team helping you out, and they're crucial to your understanding of where you're at in the race, what you need to do from a procedure point of view. But that is a radio message every driver wants to hear, isn't it, from Peter Daly? You are the leader. I'd like to hear that one day. That'd be good.
Yeah, indeed so. So out of the pit lane goes 71. All of these cars are leaving. Oh, now there's a red light. There's a red light at the end of the pit lane. So 71, which was at the front of the queue, can't leave the pit lane yet, but he is being told to go now. So that was a little bit confusing. 71 waved on, but that's caused a real traffic jam at the end of the pit lane.
I think there might have been just a light failure, or the person in control of the lights may have forgot to put it green because the person at the post said, yes, go, go, go. So unless he's got it wrong, and then they'll be getting a drive-through penalty or some penalty like that for jumping a red light.
Well, interesting. So is it Rami? No, it's now Charlie Robertson back into the 71 car, leads this queue of cars out. The point I was about to make is that we are now inside the final 65 minutes. Your stint time begins when you leave the pit lane. So as long as you've left the pit lane within 65 minutes of the end, then you can go to the end of the race. So that applies for all of the cars that we just saw pitting, and of course 27, which comes in, and 91 is in as well as the race restarts. So Andrew Howard now leads the way. He is the second car in the queue, but he's the leader for Beechdene. All of these cars coming through as a pit stop, except for number 42, who have found themselves well and truly in the pound seats here, because we believe they've made all 3 of their pit stops, and they are going to be quite some margin ahead of those that have only just left the pit lane.
Yeah, and there's 3 groups of cars. There's this group, and there's the group in the pit lane, and there's a group who are still catching up, who boxed at the end of the safety car period. So it's a little bit all over the place at the minute, but what I would say is the 91 have done their reset now, so they don't have to stop again for the rest of the race. So that could be very favourable for them.
Yes, and of course 42 we think will have to come in to do that reset further down the line. So yes, they've got a big lead over the other people that have made 3 stops, but they will have to come back in, albeit for a shorter amount of time later on in the race. Stella Motorsport there conducting their pit stop. Andrew Howard leads the Silverstone 500. It's been a while since Andrew Howard led a British GT race, and I'll have to look back at the stats to see when he last won one. Yes, I know it's pit stop related, but it's a nice moment to see that Beechdene Aston leading the way. Sadly, he's not the first car in the queue. The 66 is. Here comes Richard Neary up the inside of everybody. Neary is third, but now is second. Goes past Claude Beauvais' Aston Martin, but opens the door for Kian Jewis. Kian Jewis, very opportunistic stuff, of course. He is the pro driver. He's surrounded largely by AMS. 66 has gone off the road as well. It's all kicking off, but that 42 Mercedes is the one marching to the front.
Yes, and that's the race. If the gap between the number 42 and the number 91 is big enough to allow 42 to do a stint reset, they're going to emerge in the net lead at the end of the race. I think that's where we're at the minute. It's kind of hard to make out, but I think that's where we're at.
That's going to be tight then, isn't it? Because 42 is at the end of the Wellington Straight. 91 is turning into Village now. So it's about, I'd say that's 15 to 20 seconds behind on the road. That's going to be nip and tuck, actually. I don't think they will have quite enough of a margin, but we'll have to wait and see. It all depends, I suppose, how quickly Cian Dewis can go. He's about to challenge for the race lead. Andrew Howard, the Aston Martin, ahead of him. Cian Dewis, Richard Neary, this is your leading three. And Dewis takes the 42 car that won at Donington last time out to the lead of the race as we approach the final hour of what has been an enthralling Silverstone 500. Andrew Howard loses the lead, and it is Cian Dewis who goes out in front, and Richard Neary now will move up behind Howard to have a go at taking second place. These two have had many a battle through the years, Andrew Howard and Richard Neary. They know each other very well, and this could be an entertaining scrap for second place. Dewis to the front, and now Cian's job is simple. Head down, push, 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 and build that gap.
It is, but he's got traffic, and that's the thing. You can't see it on the screen right now, but 91 is in clear air, so he's gaining on 42, which, as we think, is the net lead battle. So that clear air really helping the Paradigm car. But number 42 under investigation for FCY procedure. Okay, we saw lots of cars breaking that procedure and overtaking, didn't we, when the FCY came out?
Indeed so. So as we've been saying, the 42 car will have to pit again to do the stint reset. They may have to come in before that, though, because they're being investigated for their full course yellow procedure. There is confirmation of that on the screen. That we kind of saw, didn't we, when they were all slowing down initially when the full course yellow was called. We did suspect maybe 42 was one of those cars that hadn't quite got the memo. So they will have to stop once more to reset the time, but they may have to come in to serve a penalty before we ever get there. For now, though, Dewis leads and is just trying to push as hard as he can to build a margin over the other people who have made their third stops. For second position, Andrew Howard versus Richard Neary is the scrap, and then in the background, Blackthorn's number 19 has been caught by the 86 Honda NSX. Chun Chung Ip is on a charge once again and is into the top 5 for British Motorsport. Again, though, owes us the third and final mandatory driver change of the race. Dewis across the line. We'll see next time, I suppose, what proper clear air pace he's got. That was a 2:01.1. Not the fastest man on track. Marvin Kirchhofer, unsurprisingly perhaps, he's been about the fastest GT3 driver all weekend long. Already holds the fastest lap of the race. He's in 9th position and has just done a purple first sector. So Kirchhofer on a charge, as is Dewis, though, James. That car moving around a lot underneath him. That extra ballast, of course, that they're carrying means he's really having to wring the neck of the AMG to get a good lap time out of it.
On the edge, and it's interesting what Sam said in that interview earlier about the track conditions not being quite there. I tend to disagree a little bit because the conditions temperature-wise are right there. The track is fully rubbered in. I think that's why we saw a qualifying lap record yesterday. The tyre, the Pirelli tyre, does seem a tricky tyre to get in the window, but the Aston Martin, they're going into Stowe over up the inside of the Mercedes. That battle that you alluded to a minute ago, and yeah, he's got through. Nice.
I'm glad we've got ringside seats for this. Richard Neary versus Andrew Howard. Howard, of course, trying to defend from Neary. Neary does now go by him into the club chicane, and that was a good scrap. It's not over yet. Neary's a little bit wide through club, gets across in front of the Aston Martin and makes second place his own for the time being. Down across the international start-finish straight they go, and the Mercedes AMG moves ahead of the Aston Martin. Claude Beauvais' Blackthorn Aston is 4th, up into 5th place now actually, has got the 74. That is Andrew Gilbert in the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Then it is Ip in 6th, and 7th position is the BMW on your screen. Dan Harper, we believe now the best placed of the cars that have made 3 stops. Technically it's the 42, but we know they'll have to make another stop. This car we do not believe will have to pit again, and they are running very strongly. They're 25 seconds off the lead car, but they've got quite a comfortable margin back to Kirchhofer behind.
One thing that may hurt the 91 is if another FCY comes out, the 42 can do its final reset under FCY. And with an hour to go in this sort of race, I think there will be at least one more FCY.
Car team manager of car 91 to race control. Just as we were talking about them, they've been summoned to race control, and we've made this point a few times today, that rarely ends in anything other than a penalty. Team manager of 74 as well, also being told to go to race control. That's that Kessel Racing Ferrari. It seems that as soon as a team find themselves in a really good position in this race, there's always a drama lurking round the corner. And this might change things altogether. Perhaps Optimum Motorsport aren't out of this yet. That 77 car is charging, and Marvin Kirchhofer has just done a new lap record, a 158.193. There he is. It's the fastest lap of the race, and he beats his own existing race lap record from 2022. Kirchhofer has been on it all weekend long.
Just breaking lap records for fun now, isn't he? Yeah. Each year, sometimes in qualifying, sometimes in the race, just when he wants, really.
Well, he'd be quite happy, actually. He's got the double now, hasn't he? He's got a brand new qualifying and race lap record. But, of course, this is all in aid of trying to get this car back into contention for the race win. They've found themselves slightly on the wrong side of the full course yellow procedure with pit stops, but they're not out of it yet, especially if cars ahead of them are going to start picking up penalties. Kirchhofer comes across the line then. He is in 9th position. That is a minute and 17 seconds behind the 42 car, which in fairness means that even if 42 do have to come in and make that reset, they probably would still come out ahead of 77. If they have a penalty and a reset, though, they must be done on separate visits to the pit lane. That could lose them a fair chunk of time. Johnny Adam, meanwhile, 3.8 seconds behind Kirchhofer. In fairness, hasn't been going an awful lot slower than the McLaren driver. Johnny Adam chasing him down. And Marcus Clutton only about a second behind him. So 3 quick drivers here at the back of the top 10, looking to try and move their way up the order.
So one car that's flown under the radar, the 74 Ferrari in P4, in the data in front of me, it says they've done all of their mandatory stops. So they are pretty well placed. They're 13 seconds off the 42. But if the 42 does get a penalty, which is a possibility, then the 74 do look good.
Yes, except the 74 is one of those whose team manager's been summoned to race control. So there's a lot of ifs and maybes at the moment. Yes, they're in a good position now. That might not last. There's the pit stop analysis for the number 7 Blackthorn car. And the 3 mandatory pit stops have been completed. And Johnny Adam got out of the pit lane within 65 minutes of the checkered flag, so can stay in that car now until the flag. In GT4 land, by the way, well, Century Motorsport, we know, have been in a good position all race long, and Charlie Robertson leads the way now by 7 seconds over Jack Brown in the Optimum McLaren, and on the previous lap was about 3/4 of a second quicker than the McLaren. It's then another 25 seconds back to the 17 of Luca Hopkinson, the 14 of Salkeld, which is 3rd place of the GT4s. That's your gap then between the GT4 leaders, and Optimum Motorsport have found their way into 2nd position, and it's about the same sort of margin back then to Salkeld in 3rd place. GT4's been remarkably static through all of this, really, hasn't it? It seems that every time we cut to them, it's 71, 90 and 14. The only difference now, of course, is that they're not chasing down the 84.
And another thing, the pit stop compensation time for the silver combos, 12 seconds at each stop. Again, that's such a big penalty when you think about it. And we've seen, although they're really fast at the beginning and the silvers run away with the opening stint, come the end of the race, they really are nowhere in comparison to the Pro-Am combos.
No, you're right, actually. That's a good point. Also worth mentioning, we sort of missed this in all of the drama that was going on at the time, but that final round of pit stops is when the compensation time was served as well. Move being made here up the inside by Claude Beauvais, gets himself up the inside of Andrew Gilbert's Ferrari as they were lapping, actually, the 3rd place GT4 BMW. Now, Gilbert trying to come back at Beauvais here. He's on the outside through Luffield corner. The Aston Martin had the preferred line and does move back through. But yeah, Keir Dewis 12 seconds in the lead and has served that extra 20 seconds in the pit lane at the most recent stop. So they really did position themselves really well. They could have been another 20 seconds up the road had they not had that 20 seconds to add on for winning at Donington. The 18 car, for what it's worth, had 10 seconds and 78.15, but they were both well out of contention, unfortunately, by that point because of their issues earlier on in the day. So, change there then for 4th position. Been quite impressed with the...
Car 74, 21-second stop-go penalty for a short pit stop. Car 74, 21-second stop-go.
Right, well, okay, 74 then with the penalty, and it's confirmed now on our timing screen, 21 seconds because they were too short in the pit lane, and that will drop that Ferrari out of contention, but had already been overtaken by the Blackthorn Aston Martin anyway. And yeah, that 19 car, I was going to say, James, been quite impressed with it. Seems like they've been there or thereabouts all day long as well. Having started 3rd from last in GT3, they picked their way through quite nicely. Both Blackthorn cars, in fairness, having a reasonably good day.
91, car 91, a 1 second stop-go penalty for a short pit stop. Car 91, 1 second.
1 second penalty for Paradigm Motorsport then. It's a 1 second penalty. 1 second, James, doesn't sound like a lot, but of course they've got to come into the pit lane, slow down, 50 kilometres an hour down the pit lane, stop, pull away again, and that's going to lose them quite a bit more than just 1 second.
It will, and the reason that that one's 1 second and the other one was 21 seconds is because they had a short pit stop by that amount of time. So in this case, the 91 had a 1 second pit stop too short, and the 74 had a 21 second pit stop that was too short. So that's why the penalties seem a bit random, but they're not. There is a reason behind that.
Right, okay, so another one to add to the list of teams to have picked up a penalty, and that will knock them out of contention. Remember, we've still got this question mark over the 42 as well. We ride on board, meanwhile, with Hugo Cook. He's now at the wheel of car number 1. Through all of this car could end up back inside the top 10, unbelievably, given all of the issues that they've had. Hugo is within a second, actually, of Marcus Clutton. And that little group of cars, Kirchhoffer, Adam, Clutton, Cook, all within a handful of seconds of each other. And Hugo Cook then heads towards the right-hander at Village Corner. There is the Marcus Clutton machine ahead, the 67 McLaren. Getting a good look here at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit from the perspective of a Lamborghini driver. Ricky was telling us before it's a great all-rounder. You can see that, can't you? It looks really stable. The car's not moving around too much. It doesn't look like it's hard work, this for Hugo Cook.
Yeah, speaking to Lambo drivers as well, they say that the steering rack's really slow, so corrections in this car look really extreme. So you might have a little slide of the car in reality, but in the cockpit it looks like they're having a massive moment. So yeah, it doesn't look like a bit of a handful, the Lamborghini at times.
Well, we're going to have a look, I believe, at a full lap of the Grand Prix circuit here. James, talk us through it.
Okay, so you've got cops, so you want to try and open it up as much as possible. It's a right-hand apex. You've got the track limits, which you need to be careful on the exit, but we're well within track limits there, 2 wheels within the white lines. Approaching arguably one of the best corner sections in the UK, Maggots Beckett. It's really high speed. Mount the curves in these GT3 cars on the right and the left just to open up Chapel, this final right. And you do have to wait for the front to rotate in the corner like this because naturally GT3 cars can be quite understeery given how heavy they are. So going down the hanger straight, so you want to creep the car over to the left for the braking zone, get the braking zone nice and straight for Stowe. Braking fairly early. It's not always a case of brake late and you'll go quick in GT3. Sometimes you need to brake early and underdrive the car to get the lap time from it. Hit the apex, let the car run out on the exit, down into Abbey, which is a nice straight braking zone, braking hard. You can see the car diving onto the front wheels there. And we meet both apexes nice, and then through Club, easy flat out right-hander. Oh, a bit of a wiggle there on traction. So again, that Lambo does look like a handful at times. Given the slow steering rack, it can look quite hard work for the driver. GT4, oh, it's not GT4 traffic, so you've got traffic from other GT3 cars, and the camera's gone a bit static on us there, but we're back, and the Ferrari blocking the Lambo here, but up the inside going into Village, and he's going to hold that position up behind the McLaren into the loop, and now we're off board.
That was 4 position as well, actually. That was the 28 Ferrari of Marcus Vivian, losing a couple of places, actually. One to Marcus Clutton, and then one, as you saw, from Hugo Cook's perspective. That does put them up a position out of the pit lane. Meanwhile, having served the penalty, I should say, goes car 91. So Dan Harper then is released back onto the circuit. So they've served their penalty. We know that 42 will have to come back into the pit lane again, but that takes away the little bit of an advantage that 91 had in that respect, really, over the 42. And so the Paradigm competition BMW released at least into some nice clean air, but an awful lot further away from the race leader than they'd have liked to be. Team manager of car 77 summoned to race control. So that's Marvin Kirchhoffer's Optimum Motorsport McLaren. What did I say? Every time a team find themselves in a good position, a penalty seems to be lurking round the corner. We don't know for sure if it'll be a penalty, but that's normally what follows that message. Meanwhile, on track, that's the Team Parker Porsche, nipping to the inside of Richard Neary. That's not for position. That was Sven Muller unlapping himself. Sven is a full lap down, I believe, more than a lap down in actual fact on the race leader, but going quickly as you'd expect for someone of Sven Muller's ability. Richard Neary then still runs in second place. He's got a 5-second margin over Andrew Howard now, who, remember, he overtook not that long ago. There is Kirchhoffer. Well, I said that this car was picking its way back into contention, but it may well now be destined for the pit lane one more time.
Isn't it crazy that despite the lap records in quali and the race, they're still only 6th. It just shows you raw pace does not matter in a race like this. It's all about the other stuff, the pit stops, the penalties, the getting the procedures right. Unbelievable how many cars and teams have got the pit stops wrong today, short pit stops. You know, given there's a timer in the car and they've done it many times before, a lot of teams falling short in that area, which to me is quite surprising. I've not seen it this bad before, actually.
I wonder whether it's just the chaos and the confusion of all of the, the multiple pit stops, the strategy going out of the window, trying to react on the fly to these new regulations with the maximum stint times, all that sort of stuff.
But the 74 car, 21 seconds short.
Well, that's a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so maybe there was a technical issue with their timer or something. You know, that's a lot. 1 second I can understand.
Yeah.
You try and get as much time out of the pit stop as possible. You can be a bit cheeky. Same with the full course yellow. You can push it to really get those final few tenths, but 21 seconds, that's, yeah.
Yes, that is quite the oversight, isn't it, really? This, meanwhile, is the Paddock Motorsport car. This is a fight for 11th place, actually. Martin Plowman's been caught by Patrick Kuyala in the number 78 Barwell Lamborghini, which itself, of course, has picked up a handful of penalties over the day. And former GP3 racer, Patrick Kuyala, switched over to Lamborghini racing in the mid-2010s. And that is where he began to forge a very, very successful GT racing career. And Patrick was second in the British GT Championship back in 2020 alongside Sam Dahan in a Barwell Lamborghini. So through Maggots and Beckett's they head.
You see the Lambo looking a lot stronger than the McLaren through Maggots Beckett's, actually. It's right on it now going into the hangar straight. In the tow, but yeah, hard to say what the straight line comparison of these two cars is, but he's not close enough to remove this lap.
No, that was interesting, though, because they're both mid-engine cars, so you'd think, in theory, would handle similarly, but then they are different cars, and they are run by different teams. They'll be set up differently.
Different aero packages. And,
exactly, yeah. There's more to it than just engine placement. The Lamborghini always has looked really well-balanced through corners such as those. Not well-balanced enough, though, for Kuyala to make a move just yet. This to try and get into the top 10 and salvage something from the day. They're both now ahead of the 28 Ferrari, which has just made its way down the pit lane. To your point, though, it is fascinating to me that, as you said, that after qualifying, the talking points were, well, no one's going to beat 84 and GT4. They're not even in the race anymore. And how consistently strong are 77 and 18? Both drivers really quick within their qualifying sessions, and seemingly now neither of them at the moment likely to be much of a factor. It goes to show that in this race in particular, it is what happens in the 3 hours on Sunday afternoon that matters a heck of a lot more than what went on in qualifying on Saturday. The grid order, completely different to the order that we've got now in the race. The progress made by some of the front-running cars, of course, is exaggerated by the fact that they owe us a pit stop. But even so, if you had a cursory glance at the running order now, whilst holding a grid sheet in your hand, you'd be a little bit confused, I think, if you haven't been following the previous 2.25 hours of racing. 44 minutes then to go in the 2025 Silverstone 500, and we now are in that portion of the race really where we're just waiting for the final pieces of the puzzle to fall into place, those final pit stops to be made by the front-running cars. But it does look as though somehow, by the skin of their teeth, the 42 car, even with this reset they've got to do, have found themselves in prime position.
That's it, yeah, and it's still very hard to see where everyone will filter out at the end of it, because, as you say, there's still some cars to do that final short stint reset for the race, because they can't go over 65 minutes. But the 42 car looks the strongest now. It was 91 up until that penalty, but yeah, the 42 still under investigation for the FCY, so there's still a bit of it's a bit dubious that, but yeah, let's see what happens.
That's true, actually, yes. That could result in a penalty that would turn the race back on its head, wouldn't it, really? And we know has to do this reset, as James just said. So, yeah, it's that could potentially be 2 more visits to the pit lane, but the penalty is speculation at the moment. We haven't actually heard that confirmed by race control. Still, this battle goes on between Kuyala and Plowman. It's interesting then that Patrick closed in pretty rapidly on the Paddock Motorsport McLaren. Just hasn't been able to find a way through. Do you think that is because of the dirty air? Because it looked like in clean air, the Lamborghini was definitely the quicker of the two.
100%. So we're seeing the Ferrari, the 74, serve its 21-second stop-go penalty. So that's why they were so far forward, having done all their driver swaps, which caught us out in commentary because we were like, how have they got up there? And they've done all their stops. But it's because they left the box 21 seconds early and made a really short pit stop. So they just leapfrogged everyone. But yeah, back to your question on dirty air. So I was actually behind Kuyala in Jeddah last year in the McLaren, and he was in the Lamborghini. I caught him quickly, but within a second, I just could not get past him for a solid 25 minutes. I had to wait for a mistake from him to get the move done. It's just like an invisible force field. You just lose front grip and you can't get any closer to the car ahead. Even if you approach a second a lap quicker, you need such a big time delta offset to actually make the move.
Getting a look there at the two BMW Evo specification cars in GT racing this year. The GT4 car Evolution was homologated over the winter, and it is leading in GT4 at the moment in the hands of Charlie Robertson by an ever-extending margin over the Jack Brown McLaren. Nearly 10 seconds now this car's lead in GT4. It was being lapped by the Paradigm number 91 GT3 BMW, which may still end up winning its class as well. It is only 5th position at the moment, but with all of the twists and turns we've just been talking about, it is potentially going to end up still with a shot at the race win. There it goes in the hands of Dan Harper, who had that brilliant battle with Sandy Mitchell here for victory a couple of years ago. Very similar conditions to these, actually charged after the Lamborghini driver in the closing stages, made a brilliant move at this part of the circuit he's heading towards now. It was one of the classic moments that this race has produced over the years. Dan Harper might yet be able to overcome a lot more adversity today than he did that day to claim a second victory in the class. He and Marvin Kirchhoff are even deep into a stint, James, continuing to put in, well, in Harper's case, personal best sectors. Kirchhoff has just done an absolute best in Sector 1.
I was just going to highlight Kirchhoff's pace. He's the only car in the 58s, 58.7 last lap, purple sector 1 this lap. The next quickest car, 59.7. So he's over a second quicker than anyone else right now. And yes, it's a mixture of bronze-rated drivers and silvers and pros, but still, that deficit everyone else has to him right now is pretty insane.
He's taking, well, that lap 0.7 of a second out of Dan Harper. The previous lap was a full second. He's 15 seconds back. Does he have time, do you think, with 40 minutes to go, to actually catch Dan Harper and give the BMW a real battle for what could be the race win?
At this rate, yes. Yeah. He only needs 15 more laps, which, yeah, we should just have just about enough time to get that over the line. He's obviously catching someone and overtaking someone is a very different thing, as we just spoke about with the dirty air. And the BMW is hard to overtake, especially in the McLaren. So the thing with the McLaren, from what I've heard, because it's so good in the corners, it gets BOP'd on the straights. So it's not a very good race car. It's hard to overtake when you're not quick on the straights. So that may work against Marvin, but raw pace-wise, looking strong.
Well, you can see the raw pace there on the screen, can't you? He was 2 seconds quicker a couple of laps ago. So Marvin Kirchhoff is the fastest man on track. This might not be straightforward for Paradigm. All of this talk of strategy and penalties and pit stops and full course yellows, you forget that actually sometimes the driver can make the difference by just going around more quickly than everybody else. And that is something Marvin Kirchhoff has excelled at this weekend. So
makes it sound easy.
Yeah, it's easy for us to say, isn't it? But you know better than anyone, not that easy to do. He is pushing on. The McLaren looks well balanced, as it did in qualifying yesterday. And for all this talk of how just being the quickest out there won't win you the race, actually, if Optimum are going to win, they need to replicate now that pace that they had in qualifying yesterday afternoon.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, we've got pit stop here with the Neary car. Oh, that's the penalty, isn't it?
There's a pit stop, this, I believe, isn't it? Yes, Richard Neary in. So Sam Neary will jump on board for the final just under 39 minutes or so of the race. Close moment for Kirchhoff with the Team Parker Mercedes there, which was just carrying its own racing line. It wasn't deliberately getting in the way, but Kirchhoff had to have some really quick reactions there to avoid running into the back of it.
I'm guessing he's been told the situation by the team that, as you said, Harper's down the road 15 seconds, 14 seconds now. That could be the net race lead. So if you get the hammer down, get through the traffic very quickly and very aggressively, there might be a win on the cards.
3/10 quicker than Harper that time. Should have been more, yes, because of the traffic. We've had a pit stop for number 19 now as well. So 2 cars from the top 5 pitting, which means that Dan Harper is now into the top 3. And we know that Andrew Howard owes us a full pit stop, and we know that Jewis will also have to come in for that reset too. New tyres going on to the number 19 Blackthorn Aston Martin. And Claude Beauvais, who's done a really good job today, will hand over to Charles Bateman to take this car through the final stint of the race. Claude Beauvais, the team owner of Blackthorn, also races with the team as well. And fresh windshield strip as well there. That's
very satisfying, that, isn't it?
and important as well, especially with the sun now starting to get a bit lower in the sky. Here is Jewis in. So Jewis in, this is the reset. So this won't be a full pit stop. He needs to come in, stop, switch the engine off, back on, and off he goes. So he's served what should be his final visit to the pit lane. However, his team manager has just been summoned to race control. At the exact moment that car came in to serve the reset pit stop, the team manager has been summoned to race control. It will get out comfortably ahead of car 91, but will it stay there? It looks doubtful now.
Penalty incoming maybe for that car, but with the stop reset where they come in, they kill the engine and restart it, that should be something the teams practice in the warm-up, for example, because there probably is a bit of a knack to stopping it, kill the engine, start it, and get the quick pull away, because that's where you can gain a second or two, which, you know, you spend so much energy with the setup trying to find a 10th here and a 10th there. Big time can be gained in the pits, as we know. So that looked like quite a long stationary period, to be honest. Considering he's only killing the engine and starting it again, he seems stationary for quite a long time. Yeah,
I thought that. We think it was around about the 30-second mark that he was in the pit lane total. Of course, doesn't have to stick to the minimum pit stop time because it's not a proper driver change pit stop. Andrew Howard has pitted now in the Beechdean Aston Martin. So that, for the time being at least, gives us a genuine look at the running order now. It will be Jewis the leader, having made that reset. Harper second, Kirchhoff third, Johnny Adam fourth, and Marcus Clutton in fifth position, with about 1 minute and 22 seconds covering the top five. But we believe the race leader may be on the verge of being handed a penalty, and that would tighten things up significantly. The Beechdean car, though, looking lovely in its new for 2025 livery. And that car will be released back onto the circuit then for the final part of the race, with Tom Wood, the pro driver, once again on board. So there is the 42 car then, which has made this reset. It has been observed by someone, not us, in the commentary box, Tom Hornsby down in the media centre, that the lights, he doesn't think, went off on the 2C's Mercedes. Usually, well, always, if you kill the engine, the light should go off. So I'm not sure. I didn't spot that myself, I'll be honest.
Well, to be fair, if you don't kill the ignition,
okay, fair enough,
the master switch, then they can stay on. So,
right.
Yeah, I think he still killed the engine there successfully, to be fair.
Good. We don't need another investigation for car 42. Car 12 is under investigation for a pit stop procedure, and team manager has been summoned to race control. Car 12 is the Ed McDermott, Seb Morris GT4 Team Parker Mercedes, which sits at the moment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th place in GT4. But second in the Endurance Cup. It's the 41 car that's leading in the GT4 Endurance Cup of Jamie Orton and Will Burns at the moment, the Rob Boston Racing Porsche.
So if the gap at the minute between P1 and P2, 22 seconds. So if Jewis gets a drive-through, which is about 20 seconds, this could be game on for the final half an hour.
Yeah, good point, because he was in the pit lane for about 30 seconds with a stop, and basically a stop-go penalty. It wasn't a penalty, but it was essentially the same sort of thing. That could be very tight, couldn't it? He won't necessarily lose the lead, and even if he does, it won't be by a huge amount. Bounces over the curbs there down at the club chicane. Marvin Kirchhoff, by the way, remember, he was 15 seconds adrift of Dan Harper, nearly down to 12.5 seconds now between the two of them, and on the previous second, James, a full second quicker than the BMW. This is coming together very nicely.
It is, yeah. We could have a three-way fight, 3 different cars fighting for the win for the Silverstone 500. Bring it on.
Well, absolutely. I am here for it. We've got a Mercedes, a BMW, and a McLaren. And give Johnny Adam or Marcus Clutton a chance to get up there with a safety car or something. We could add even more really quick drivers into this lead scrap. It would be nice, though, if it all kind of happened organically. Yes, there have been penalties, but hey, that's part of racing, and it might well give us a grandstand finish. Do not go anywhere. We've got 33.5 minutes of the Silverstone 500 still to go. There on the left of your screen, you can see that gap, 12.6 seconds it was at the start of the lap, Harper to Kirchhoff. In the first sector on the next lap, it was about 2/10 quicker for Kirchhoff than Harper. He's taken another 2 or 3 tenths out of him in sector 2, and that's with Harper putting in personal best. So Dan is not coasting here, because of course he's trying to chase off after Kian Jewis as well. This is genuine pace from the Optimum McLaren.
It is. I think just listening to the BMW guys, they feel like this round the BOPs are just not on their side, because you know, Harper's a BMW factory driver. Of course, Marvin's a McLaren factory driver. There shouldn't be a second between the two of them when it comes to driving ability. So I think there is definitely a car deficit in terms of pace for the BMW this round. But they're still making the most of it. They're still P2 and with every chance of getting a victory, to be honest. Yep. So doing a great job.
Team manager of car 42 has arrived at race control, and to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. We will, in good time, find out what's going on and what the decision is. and indeed what it means for the context of this race. Harper to Kirchhofer down to 12 seconds now. Kirchhofer with a 1:59.0. It was a personal best lap for Harper, but still 6/10 slower than Kirchhofer. So to James's point, try as he might, Harper just doesn't have the pace in the car right now to match the pace being set by Kirchhofer behind, and 32 minutes might just be enough for the Optimum McLaren driver to close in on the BMW, which nips to the inside of that GT4 Endurance Cup leading Porsche. In the classes within GT3 and GT4, Pro-Am in GT3 of course being led by the number 42 car, the Silverstone category led at the moment by car 27, that's the Stellar Audi, Matt Topham and Darren Burke. As the Century Motorsport crew watch on their car, of course, leading as well in GT4, with Charlie Robertson leading overall and within Pro-Am, and the Silver Cup in GT4 also led by Century, that being the number 14 BMW in the hands at the moment of Chris Salkal. So at the moment, it's all looking very good if you're Century Motorsport.
Indeed, and still waiting on that 42 penalty if it's going to come or not. I mean, that's really the crux of this race, isn't it? You know, we're not really sure if there will be a battle for the lead if there's no penalty. There's a 22-second gap to bridge, which that's not going to happen in half an hour. So, yeah, just a waiting game now. Yeah,
yes, I know, exactly. I sort of want to fast forward the clock a bit, don't you, so that we know what's going to go on. But half an hour still for it all to play out. Jewis, yeah, he's lapping slower than these two cars, but he's so far ahead that without a penalty, wouldn't be convinced that they're going to catch him. 21.9 seconds is his lead over Dan Harper. Harper does a 1:59.857. Momentarily, Marvin Kirchhofer will cross the line. There he goes. It's a 58.9, 9/10 quicker. It's under, it's nearly 11 seconds now that he has cut that margin down to. Question for you though, James. Do you think that maybe Dan Harper might be managing the situation a bit here? Kirchhofer is pushing, but maybe taking life out of the tyres that he might then need to execute an overtake?
I don't think so. I think if it was a hot day, you know, 45, 50 degrees track temp, maybe that would come into it. But in these sort of temps, it really is full push, really, for the whole hour. Obviously, you're not trying to kill the tyres, you're not trying to abuse the tyres, but you're driving as quickly and as smoothly as possible for the entirety of the stint. So I think this is just a pace issue for the BMW. And interestingly, something that one of the pro drivers in the paddock was telling me yesterday, cars that are one-off entries for this round have a tyre advantage over cars that are doing the full season. So the cars doing the full season have to run the scrubbed tyre set that they use in quali, that they carried over from Donington, and the one-off entries get brand new sets basically. So they have one fresher set compared to the cars that are doing the full season. So it's only, you know, the scrub set's only done 10 or 15 minutes of running, but still, in the latter stages of an endurance race, that could come into play.
Battle for 12th position here, starting to boil up a little bit. Luke Garlick in the 86 Honda NSX, catching up now to number 19 Charles Bateman, who in fairness has only jumped back into that Aston Martin number 19. But Garlick, who came out of the Ginetta racing ranks in recent years, is chasing down the Aston Martin pretty rapidly, and this is the sort of pace we saw from the NSX in the first part of the race, and it looks really strong again now in a straight line. In fact, it's going to put the Aston Martin under pressure into Copse Corner. Bateman defends on the way in. That should slow him down on corner exit. Right round the outside, attempts to go the NSX. It's given the big squeeze, but there's just about a car's width left, and Luke Garlick blasts
drive-through penalty, overtaking under yellow flags. Car 42, drive-through.
So there's confirmation. It's a drive-through penalty then for Kian Jewis for that car overtaking under yellow flags. We saw it happen just as that latest full course yellow was thrown. Now a drive-through penalty, James, you said was, quote, about 20 seconds. Well, we might need to get more specific than that because he's 21 seconds ahead of Dan Harper in second place. This is going to be mighty, mighty close.
I think this is going to be close, and when they rejoin, and they are close, and they presumably will fight, that's going to bring them both back into the clutches of Kirchhofer. So
yeah.
He will catch them anyway, but he's going to catch them even quicker, giving him more time to potentially overtake them for the lead. So definitely a three-way fight.
We're going to see a replay here of that infringement, James. We saw this happening live. This is the moment. The yellow flags are out. Full course yellow has been called, and he nips up the inside of the 37 car. and they were out for the yellow flags are displayed for about 10 seconds before the full course yellow is displayed. So that was the moment the full course yellow was called. The yellow flags were actually waving for quite some time before that.
Yeah, and if the GT4 McLaren was super early to get down to FCY speed, it could have caught the 42 out, so it didn't have to be his fault. But yeah, he's boxing. This is the penalty. Right
then, where is Dan Harper? Dan Harper is halfway down the Wellington Straight, so he's a couple of corners away. He, at the start of the lap, was 21.2 seconds behind Cian Jewis, who is serving that drive-through penalty. Down the pit lane, he trundles. This will seem like an age. Here comes Harper off Luffield. It's going to be nip and tuck this, and it could be decisive for the race. Dan Harper pushing on.
Car 12 has a drive-through penalty for a pit stop infringement. Car 12, drive-through penalty.
That's the Team Parker Mercedes in GT4. We'll cover that in a moment. Here comes Harper. I think he might get past Jewis. Yes, he has. That was Jewis's roof I saw still in the pit lane exit. Harper goes through fractionally ahead of Jewis by a second or so. The BMW man has gone through those couple of quick laps that he did where he was setting personal bests a few laps ago. That has netted him the race lead. Now, though, he has to hang on to it.
Yes, but he was quicker. Harper was quicker than Jewis before the drive-through. So in theory, if the pace remains the same as before, he'll just run away, providing he doesn't have any issues with traffic. Kirchhoffer's the thing now for me. If he can get to Jewis and overtake him quickly, he still has time to catch Harper, and then we have a fight for the lead again. But I think for now, Harper will just pull away from Jewis.
Yeah, Jewis coming out between Harper and Kirchhoffer isn't great news for Marvin, is it? Because he's going to have to overtake the Mercedes just to have a go at the BMW. Jewis round the outside of two GT4 cars who, in fairness, were doing everything they could to stay out of the way of a fairly fired-up Cian Jewis. And Cian does safely negotiate that little group, but has lost even more time on this lap since rejoining the circuit. So Dan Harper leads then for Paradigm competition in the 91 BMW. And Cian Jewis in the number 42 2Cs Mercedes is in second position. Marvin Kirchhoffer 7 seconds behind Jewis, but that is now, what, within 10 seconds of Harper. So
1.5 seconds quicker on the last lap than both of them.
Wow, that is impressive. And of course the leaders have been in traffic on this lap. Now yes, Kirchhoffer will also have to negotiate that traffic, but if he catches them on a straight, whereas the leaders were catching them through the corners, that is another advantage to the Optimum McLaren, which has 25 minutes to try and overhaul about a 9-second deficit to the leader, and en route to the leader, overtake the Mercedes. That's going to be the thing that decides the race, isn't it? When he gets to Jewis, how quickly can he get through?
Exactly that. And can you imagine if one team got every pit stop right, no penalties, how far in the lead they'd be right now? It'd be great. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it? But yeah, it's just, everyone knows it as well going into the race. It's a race of attrition, just get all the procedures right, blah, blah, blah. But doing it is another thing, even though you're aware of that.
You have to serve 3 mandatory pit stops in this race. The 2 cars at the front of the field have pitted 5 times. If that doesn't tell you how chaotic this...
5-stop strategy, yeah.
No one saw that coming, did they? Maybe that's the secret strategy that Darren Leung was referring to when he spoke to Bryn Lucas yesterday. But hey, it's worked out well for him and Dan Harper. They are 2.2 seconds out in front. The gap between the top 3 is just a fraction under 10 seconds. There in the background, you caught a glimpse of Marvin Kirchhoffer as he pushed out of Chapel. From a championship perspective, though, James, I know it's only round 2, but it's a relatively short season, British GT. You know, we only have 9 races over the course of the season. Every race matters. This is still a bit of a win for 2Cs, you'd have to say, given everything they've overcome this weekend, the extra weight put into the car. They didn't qualify very well. Actually, if you'd have told them on Saturday morning you're going to finish second in the Silverstone 500, they'd have been quite happy.
And second to a car that's not doing the entire season. So when you think about it like that, they actually have won out of all the cars doing the full season. So, big moment.
Well, yes, they're going to take good points if they don't bin it, of course. Cian Jewis with a huge push moment there through Abbey and Village. Of course, the concern for them is the 77, because they are a full season entry. They are here to take points off the 42. A reminder, as James was alluding to, the 91 doesn't score points. So actually, the maximum points for a race win will go to whoever finishes second, assuming 91 crosses the line first. So even if Kirchhoffer can't win the race, if he catches Jewis, we will have a battle for the maximum points. From a championship perspective, that's almost more important.
And the Kirchhoffer car at Donington finished 4th, so they are very much in championship contention. So it's championship critical in a way to keep the McLaren behind for Jewis. And yeah, I mean, we want to see a fight for the win, but it's not really that important for the Mercedes, to be honest. So.
Yeah, in any other race, I think I'd tend to agree with you, but because it's the Silverstone 500, we say it's the one they all want to win. I think the drivers genuinely do care about winning this race, and especially when you've had it snatched away from you. They were so close. Without that penalty, they had this more or less in the bag. 20 seconds up the road, managing the pace, and because of that, they've lost a chance at lifting the big trophy, but they haven't lost their chance to take a big haul of points away from Silverstone. In GT4, things for now at least are a little bit more stable. 17.8 seconds now. The gap between Charlie Robertson and Jack Brown has gone out by about 8 seconds since I last checked, maybe 20 or so minutes ago. Very impressive pace from the BMWs. This is one prediction we sort of got right. We both said yesterday, I think, that if anyone was going to challenge Mahiki, it would probably be Century Motorsport. Okay, Mahiki in the end took themselves out of it with that issue for the 84 car, but Century have done the job, as so often they do.
Yeah, they've slowly but surely made their way to the front, and I'm seeing a lot of cars now pick up track limit warnings. Some of their first track limit warnings of the race. So I think a lot of people saving their track limits for the end. Especially if you're someone like Jewis right now, you've got a really quick car catching you, and say if you've got 3 track limits to use, you can just lean on that a little bit. It gives you a little bit more margin to push. If you only have 1 remaining before a drive-through, it makes driving very, very nerve-wracking, because even if you just run wide by accident and get a track limit, bang, penalty. So keeping a few in hand is always a good play, to be honest.
Indeed so, and there are drivers still pushing on for quick lap times. Speaking of quick lap times, the 71 car, Charlie Robertson, he's got the fastest lap in GT4. That's a new GT4 lap record as well, by 18 thousandths of a second. And that lap time from Kirchhofer, incidentally, is only a fraction slower, 28 thousandths of a second, off the all-time GT3 lap record here at Silverstone, set in a GT Open race about 6 years ago. That is how quick the pace has been on this Silverstone 500 weekend. This is the Rob Boston Racing Porsche, by the way, number 41. Will Burns, former Ginetta and British Touring Car racer, at the wheel at the moment. They lead in the GT4 Endurance Cup, which is this new category for 2025, which just takes in the longer races in the British GT campaign. Rob Boston Racing, one of those teams that's been around for so long, particularly operating at club level in the United Kingdom. Rob Boston himself, the team owner, a very successful racing driver in his own right, but these days focusing much more on running cars in the main championships, often things like Mazda MX-5.
Car 28, drive-through penalty, pit stop infringement. Car 28, drive-through penalty, door open while refueling.
Well, that's a new one to add to the list of penalties. That's the Spirit of Race Ferrari, Marcus Vivian and Francesco Castellacci. They dropped down the order anyway to 16th because they owed us that extra pit stop, and during that pit stop they had the door open when they shouldn't. So another mistake in the pit lane. Pit lane has decided this race, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, and that's an easy mistake to make. You know, the car comes in, and as the driver getting in, you have to wait for the fuel to be done before you do the driver swap. However, maybe he's just gone, open the door, and that's, yeah. It does seem harsh, but the rules are the rules.
Now, here is Patrick Kuhler trying to work his way through some GT4 traffic. He is still stuck behind Martin Plowman. They're battling now for 7th place. It was about 10th, I think, last time we saw them. But this Lamborghini's been stuck behind the Paddock Motorsport McLaren for an awfully long time. 7th place for Paddock. I think they'd be pretty happy with that as well. They've not really had the best of fortune of late in the British GT Championship, but Martin Plowman, who runs the team, remains as passionate as ever about doing well. And if they can hang on to a 7th place finish and keep the Barwell car behind, that would be a real shot in the arm for them.
Yeah, a solid result, isn't it? They definitely seem to struggle to get as much out of that McLaren as, say, Optimum or even Orange, to be honest. Yeah. So, yeah, 7th overall with their lack of pace, you could say, at the minute, is pretty solid.
So, big knot of GT4 traffic here. The 28 Ferrari weaving its way through as well. At the back of that group was the 17 McLaren, which sits 4th at the moment in GT4.
And what about this car? This car was literally the quickest car in the first stint, second right behind the leader, and they've been, after that first unfortunate FCY, they've been nowhere the whole race. It just goes to show if one unfortunate bit of timing ruins your race, it's really hard to recover that time.
And then any chance of getting back on the lead lap went away when they had the contact with Marcus Clutton here at Copse Corner on the restart. They have, though, just gained a place, 14th place now for Maximilian Gertz, ahead of Fran Rueda, two very experienced GT campaigners. And Rueda in the Ferrari slips down to 15th position. That's now the highest placed Ferrari, and only 15th. It's all got away from them slightly in the over the course of the afternoon. Lead gap 2.9 seconds, by the way, Harper to Jewis, 2.7 now actually at the end of the latest sector. A personal best lap that time for Jewis, and that was 4/10 quicker than the leader. So my first thought there was, oh, Harper must have had traffic. Actually, no, Jewis has unlocked something.
Yeah, he's picking up the pace. 4/10 quicker on the last lap. It's not enough of a delta to really, you know, there's not going to be a likely overtake if he does catch the back of Harper. However, you know, despite the 30-kilo weight they're carrying around, it doesn't seem to be affecting them too much throughout a stint. Kirchhoff, though, still, it was a bad lap last lap. I think he had traffic on the last lap, but 7.6 seconds off Jewis. That gap is stabilised a bit. Maybe he has, as you said earlier, peaked the tyre a bit too early, and maybe the McLaren uses the tyre quite a lot, and over a longer stint, it doesn't have the pace of the other cars. So, yeah, it's definitely stabilised.
Yeah, it wasn't a good time, that, for Kirchhoff to have an off lap, because it coincided with Jewis going quicker than he's been so far. So that was nearly a second gained by Jewis. 7.6 seconds the gap between the two of them. You're riding on board here with Hugo Cook, who's still chasing down Marcus Clutton. Again, this has been a fairly static situation for a while now. Clutton nips to the inside of the second place GT4 Optimum McLaren, but Hugo Cook, again, trying to salvage some points here for the #1 squad, closing in on 67 ahead. That would be a battle for 5th place if only he could get there, but we're seeing this more and more now in this pro-led stint of the race. Once they get within a second or so of each other, they really struggle then to break any closer, and it will take a fumble in traffic, you feel, for Marcus Clutton to end up losing that position inside the top 5. Clutton then finds himself now in a bit of clean air, as, in fairness, does Cook, so we'll see over the first part of this lap whether he's able to close in. But another car here who, had it not been for a penalty, could very easily have been up there contending for a race victory. I think SRO Motorsport will have a few questions to ask themselves at the end of the afternoon.
Yeah, not their best day, which is obviously unfortunate as it's the team manager's birthday. But one thing I would probably introduce to GT racing would be DRS, because that dirty air issue does negate that a little bit, doesn't it? And it is frustrating when you have a car close in on a car ahead really quickly, and then they can't do anything because of the dirty air. So that's the thing. These GT cars year on year are always developing and getting Evo versions which have more downforce. But when you have more downforce, you have more dirty air. So that's when the racing becomes a bit worse. So something to consider maybe.
Yes, because it's been a very uneventful afternoon and we've had nothing to get excited about, James. It's been sometimes, we've had some good side-by-side racing on track, but maybe it's just the format sometimes of the race that lends itself to then producing some really good action. And around Silverstone, yes, you've got the high-speed corners. It's hard to follow each other closely through there, but in the traffic and the big braking points, we have seen some good overtakes. We might still have a few more on the cards before the day is done. Lead gap, by the way, came down for a second lap in succession. Make that now a third lap in succession. 3 laps in a row that Jewis has been a couple of tenths quicker than Harper. 2.3 seconds back, 14.5 minutes to go. I agree with you that at the rate he's catching it, he's not going to breeze past Harper if he gets there, but he's keeping himself close enough that Harper will be aware he is there, and if Dan does have a stumble in some traffic, you just never know. If Jewis has half a sniff of this, he'll go for it.
Exactly that. But it's not Harper's first rodeo, is it? He's won this race before 2 years ago, I think, if I'm not wrong. So he's been in this position before. It's another day at the office, you could say. Jewis newer to GT3, but he is the one on the attack, so it's a bit easier when you're the one on the offense. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, there you can see he's not a million miles back, and it's not like they've had traffic either. First sector is another personal best for Jewis. I think that's 3 or 4 laps in a row where he's improved upon his first sector time. It's only fractionally quicker than Harper, 4/100ths quicker, but quicker nonetheless. Sector 2, 25.1 for the leader, 25.0 for Jewis. He's inching forwards, but again, this rate of closure, you feel that once he gets well within the dirty air, that might well stop. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a nail-biter, this, definitely, for Paradigm competition. Jewis has at least, seemingly, seen off this challenge from Kirchhoff. 8 seconds, that gap now between the two of them. Kirchhoff only capable of matching here, Jewis, at this point. So I think Kirchhoff might have to settle for 3rd position, unless, of course, the lead battle really ignites.
Yeah, and let's keep reminding ourselves, this doesn't really matter, this fight, does it? Because the BMW's not scoring championship points.
Yeah.
As boring as that sounds, that is the reality. So I'm sure Jewis would have got told that over the radio, just to remind you, mate, you know, the car ahead's not scoring points, no risks. You're basically bagging the overall win anyway in the championship side of things. So, but he's still catching him, and it would be cool. It would be cool with 10 minutes to go.
If you were Kian Jewis right now, and you've got maybe 3-4 tenths a lap in hand over the race leader, you've got 12-13 minutes left of the Silverstone 500. If you've got half a chance at winning, regardless of the situation with points, I just think you'd go for it, wouldn't you?
Oh, you would. You would. Yeah, if you had half a chance and it was safe.
Yep.
But if there was any risk, there really is no point. When you got the adrenaline going in the car, and honestly, that is something that's underrated, is what adrenaline does to you in the moment. You know, the final lap, Silverstone 500, everyone's watching, spectators, everyone at home. You probably would go for it, wouldn't you?
I think I certainly would.
Would you?
Oh, absolutely. Whether I'd be capable of doing it is another matter, but given the chance, you'd give it a go, wouldn't you? 3.5 tenths quicker that time was Jewis than Harper, sorry. How close do you think he'll get then before he really does start to feel the negative effect of the aero? Because that might be the only thing that stops this charge. He's clearly quicker at this stage of the Harper. Can he get close enough?
Yeah, it's probably within 7 tenths a second, something like that. And it's only in certain corners as well. It's medium and high-speed corners, Maggots, Beckett's, you know, where they've just been through their club. You'll get a little bit of a push and understeer. What's going on?
Bryn Lucas has just been chatting to Charles Dawson. Charles Dawson's quote was, "We want to win the 500, so they are going for it. I think they've given Kian Jewis the green light here to give this a very good go. It would mean the world to them, as I said, especially with all of the adversity they've faced over the weekend. If they could come out on top in this race, I think that would mean a lot more to them almost than championship points. He's taken 4 tenths out of Harper on this lap alone, just through the first couple of sectors. The Rob Boston Porsche will need to be lapped soon, and Harper's going to catch it heading through Brooklands and Luffield. That will cost the leader more time, and this is the point now where one little hiccup could really prove costly for Dan Harper. He's stuck on the outside line. He's on the dirty side of the road through Luffield. He makes the move, but there'll be dirt on the tyres. He's almost in the gravel coming off Luffield corner, and with just under 11 minutes of the race to go, the lead gap has come down again.
For car 86, car 86. You must respect track limits, a drive-through.
Oh, drive-through penalty for car 86. That's the NXS. We'll not worry too much about that. They're deep in the order, 12th place at the moment. 1.4 seconds the lead gap. 7 tenths quicker last time was Jewis. He's on the charge. He's going to go for it. He's got 10.5 minutes of the Silverstone 500 left to try and make something truly extraordinary happen and bounce back from the penalty to claim the race victory. He's arriving with momentum, isn't he, as well? And that's key in a situation like this. What he doesn't want is to get stuck behind the 91 car in that dirty air, lose the momentum. He's got that momentum at the moment, needs to keep it up.
Looking at the track map, GT4 traffic will come into play 5 minutes from now, 1 or 2 laps. So I think if he can get within that second, and you know the dirty air will do its work after that, but if he can get on Harper's gearbox, and then when the GT4 traffic comes, that's his best hope. And it can happen. We just saw Dan lose quite a lot of time at Luffield there behind that Porsche. So still all to play for.
It's that second sector where the Mercedes seems strong. Stowe, Club Chicane, that's where he seems to gain a chunk. Another couple of tenths taken out of Harper through that second sector. The gap's down to about a second, but this, as James has been saying, is where that dirty air perhaps is going to start to negatively affect the grip that Kian Jewis has at his disposal. Less so through the low-speed stuff, though. So Sector 3 through Village and the Loop. He can keep on charging, keep on closing. We'll get the Sector 3 time in a moment, just as they go under the bridge down the Wellington Straight. And we'll see whether he still is closing in. A 36.2 for the leader, no, 36.3 for Jewis. And I think that is what's starting to happen now. It's just balancing out, but he's done all he can. He's got within a second or so of the leader. Harper's car sliding there at low speed through Luffield. And with traffic perhaps on the horizon, there could be one key moment in this race, I think, when they do come across some GT4 traffic, and Jewis needs to make sure he's close enough to pounce. There's a GT4 McLaren ahead, and they could well catch that car through Beckett's.
I think Dan might get it before Maggots Beckett's. For his sake, that's a good thing. But Jewis might get held up, so the gap might increase, which might, I don't know, we need a different camera angle, really, don't we, to see this. But Let's find out.
Well, there goes Kirchhoffer through. Well, Harper's having to make the pass through Beckett, but does get it done. He's on the dirty side of the road again. The BMW slides from underneath him, and Jewis lost less time in that, I would say, than the BMW.
Car 86 has 5 seconds added to their race time for overtaking off track.
Okay, well, that's definitely not respecting track limits, is it? Overtaking off track for the 86. But yes, the 42 machine keeps charging on. That was one GT4 back marker. There are a few more just heading out of Club Corner. They will catch those cars, definitely, before the end of the race. So that will be the key moment. I think the gap now stable at about a second. As Charles Dawson watches on, looking remarkably calm in the 2C's garage, but, well, he must be going through it now. He's completely powerless. He's got the right man for the job in Kian Jewis. He knows that Kian won't leave anything on the table, but I think you would certainly much prefer to be in the car at this stage than stood in the garage watching.
Totally. And his role's reversed from Donington, really, because at Donington they were on the defence from Sandy Mitchell in this exact same scenario, trying to weave their way through traffic. It's completely changed this time around. Jewis on the attack, trying to get past Harper, and I think they're approaching more traffic into Brooklands now, so they might see that traffic at not Luffield, probably Copse, Maggots, Beckett's again, a cluster of 2 or 3 cars, so there might be something about to happen.
Yeah, they're also catching, I think, a couple of GT3 cars, the 97 Aston Martin among them. They're lapping quite a bit quicker than 97, but a GT3 car could be even more tricky to overtake than a much slower GT4. This is the car at the head of the GT4 field then. It is still Charlie Robertson. He's 21.5 seconds clear now of the chasing Jack Brown in second position. Aston Martin GT4 lapped by the leader before Copse Corner. Jewis maybe loses a tenth or so by following it through the first turn. He was just fractionally within a second that time at the line, but that gap definitely went out through Copse Corner. To James's point, though, there are more lapped cars ahead. 17 is the next to go a lap down. That's the 4th place GT4 car, Optimum Motorsport, with Luca Hopkinson at the wheel. It looks as though both of them will probably clear that car. Heading down the Hanger Straight, Harper certainly has. And actually, as you said earlier on, James, the difference in a straight line is not that great, so Jewis hasn't got there by the braking zone for Stowe.
Yeah, he's on the flashes, trying to let the McLaren in front know, right, I'm coming through, get out of the way, I'm fighting for the lead. The GT4 won't really know that information, so he's a bit impartial, really. He'll just try and get out of the way and lose as little time as possible from where he sat. That's all he cares about. But he didn't lose too much time there, Jewis, and still within a second, but he just, as I say, the Dirty 8 just can't get any closer.
Yeah, that momentum that I mentioned has now stalled out, hasn't he, really? He's slower in the first 2 sectors of this lap by quite a chunk, over half a second lost now on this lap so far, but there are still 5.5 minutes to go. 2 battling GT4s ahead, or at least GT4 cars running close together. They're not actually fighting for position. Harper nips to the inside of the Team Parker Mercedes, parks the BMW on the apex of the loop, will want to get past the 14, which understandably doesn't make life too difficult for the 91, and again, minimal time lost there for Harper. Will it be the same for Jewis, though? He's going to catch them down the straight, and yes, this should work out okay, I think, for the man in second place.
You can see Kirchhoffer in the background now. He's still closing in. He's still half a second a lap quicker than these two, but he's just run out of time. And there was that period in the middle of the stint where, so at the beginning of the stint he was rapid, middle of the stint it stabilised, and now he seems to have picked it up again, but just run out of time.
That's possibly about the last of the traffic as well now for the leading two. Out of Woodcote they head. Across the line, the gap now officially 1.4 seconds, let's call that. Harper just keeping Kian Jewis at arm's length. It's a role reversal for Dan Harper compared to when he last won this race a couple of years ago. That year he was the one charging after Sandy Mitchell. He was the one tasked with making the big move. This time around he's got to try and defend this race lead from the charging and angry Kian Jewis, who in turn, as James quite rightly says, is only 6 seconds now ahead of Marvin Kirchhoffer. And
but you've got to say it's super impressive that they're even in this position. You know, they're very likely to win the Silverstone 500 with the car in qualifying being what looked like a second off. So just master of the strategy. As the 42 car as well have done a mega job with the strategy, and you know, hats off to both teams.
Absolutely, and of course we're talking about factory GT drivers here now in the shape of Dan Harper and Kian Jewis and Marvin Kirchhoffer as well. These are the best in the world at GT racing, coupled with teams who know what they're doing and have managed to navigate the very complicated strategic element of this race. It's all boiled down in the end to a straight race between two of the top GT drivers in the world. Dan Harper certainly has established himself as one of those over recent years. It just looks as though he's got enough for now to keep Kian Jewis at bay. There is no more GT4 traffic in the immediate future for them. They will at some point have to lap the 97 Aston Martin of Tom Wood. That's the Beach Dean Aston Martin. That's the last car on the lead lap. So we've still got 11 cars, GT3 cars, on the lead lap. There goes the 97. Now, Tom is a quick driver, of course he is. He's a silver graded driver. He won't deliberately get in the way of these leading two, but that car is going to be a little bit more of a headache maybe for Dan Harper than some of the slower GT4s. Yes, he will lose more time stuck behind a GT4 car, but he might be behind the 97 for a bit longer.
For sure. Kirchhoff getting his second track limit warning, so you can really tell he's pushing and he's using everything he's got. You know, he's got one more, and then any more after that, it's a drive-through. So I'm sure he won't go over that limit, but still pushing. Slightly slower on that last lap actually than the two cars ahead, so maybe hit some traffic. But yeah, it's a two-horse race now, and something crazy's got to happen, really, isn't it, in this final lap or so?
Yeah, Century BMW going through as the leader in GT4 there. This is Jack Brown in second place for the Optimum Motorsport team, McLaren. And that gap, what is it, 21.5 seconds. GT4, the gaps have just exploded out, haven't they, really? 21.5 seconds Robertson to Brown, 37.5 back to Salkeld, the Silver Cup leader. There is a potential story developing in Silver Cup, though, actually, because Luca Hopkinson is lapping quicker than Chris Salkeld and is within 3 seconds. On the previous lap was 1.2 seconds quicker than Salkeld. There is Salkeld then, so he leads in Silver Cup for now. He might just have enough of a lead with only now a couple of minutes to go, but it's going to be a little bit closer than Century Motorsport would like this. Luca Hopkinson's been putting in some decent lap times of late and was 0.3 quicker in the first sector on this lap. There is Hopkinson, the white and blue McLaren, just coming down the hill. And they will have some GT3 cars coming through to lap them in the near future, so I think that's going to maybe give them a little bit of a headache. Through Club Corner they go. They're the only two Silver Cup entries still running, because of course the Mahiki 84 car was the other one. It's the one we expected them to be chasing all afternoon long. It's just not quite panned out that way. And Century Motorsport versus Optimum Motorsport is the battle that we have, at least in Silver Cup. A minute to go. The leaders are going to be starting their final lap very shortly, and that lead gap coming down then potentially to back within a second now. We'll have to see what it is when they actually get to the timing line. There is 27, by the way. This is the Silver Am leader in GT3. So I mentioned Tom Wood's 97 Aston Martin that's about to go a lap down. Well, he is second in the class, but Darren Burke in the 27 Audi that he shares with Matt Topham, they've had a pretty quiet day, I'd say, James. That's exactly what you need on a day like this, and it looks like a class win may be their reward. What about the overall fight for victory, though? It's 3/4 of a second as we start the last lap.
They've got one GT4 they might catch in Abbey, but I think if that goes well, I mean, it's really close now, though, isn't it? Within 7/10. So he's managed. Maybe Harper made a slight mistake, but this is the last lap, and he's weaving to try and get him away from out of the toe there. So one GT3 ahead, one GT4 that's slightly ahead of the Aston. So let's see what happens.
Well, this is as close as Jewis has been. I don't think he's been within 7/10 before, just struggling to get the car around Stowe. Now they head into a braking zone at the Club Chicane, and Jewis will be as late as he dares. He visibly is later on the brakes than the BMW. Do you know what? If he has a good run through Abbey, he might just be close enough to put the pressure on through the loop. That could be the moment that settles the race. I don't think they're going to catch any lap traffic here. It's a straight fight between Dan Harper and Kian Jewis for the Silverstone 500 victory. The time has ticked down to 0. The checkered flag awaits for one of these cars to claim victory in British GT's biggest race. There is a GT4 McLaren they will have to lap as Jewis sends it into villages through a gap up the inside into the loop. He's too far back. He thinks about it, tries to fill the mirrors of Dan Harper's BMW. They are nose to tail as they head through Aintree for the final time. Where and when do they catch this McLaren? It's going to be almost into the braking zone at Brooklands, isn't it? Harper's closing in. He'll be flashing the lights furiously. Nips to the inside, and that could have done the job. In fairness there, Jack Brown stays well out of the way. Wanted no part in that. Second place in GT4 is safe for him. Dan Harper, though, I think has done just enough in what has been a far more nail-biting finish than at times we thought it would be. Dan Harper and that paradigm competition will win the 2025 Silverstone 500. The winning margin was under 0.6 of a second to Kian Jewis in the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes, which gave it everything to try and steal the victory away. Marvin Kirchhofer will leave Silverstone as a double lap record holder, but only the third step of the podium for Optimum Motorsports McLaren after that really good effort from him charging through in the early part of the stint. But it is BMW on top in GT3, and it would appear, James, it's going to be the same story in GT4.
Absolutely, yeah. The 91 car, not the fastest, but they were the masters of the strategy, and so were the 42 as well, 2Cs Motorsport. Both teams doing an amazing job with the strategy, so hats off to both.
And indeed to Century Motorsport as well, who look like they're going to get not only 2 cars on the podium in GT4, but potentially a double race win, although Salkeld is only 1.4 seconds ahead of Hopkinson. They've crossed the line though, so it doesn't matter. They've seen the checkered flag already, so Chris Salkeld has already won the Silver Cup element of GT4. He has netted 3rd place in GT4, and Charlie Robertson, actually one of the few GT4 cars who hasn't seen the checkered flag now. So far ahead was he.
A nice victory lap for him.
Yeah, exactly, and he's all on his own as well. He gets the spotlight shone on his shiny number 71 BMW, which is shiny because it stayed largely out of trouble really all day in what's been a race of attrition elsewhere. Century's BMWs have run flawlessly in GT4, and Charlie Robertson will bring the car home in just a few moments to claim a victory in the GT4 ranks, and that will really help them in the context of the championship as well, of course. They were second last time at Donington behind the number 90 car. Well, they're going to reverse that score here at Silverstone, so that's already shaping up to be a very, very close championship battle between 71 and 90. A GT4 class that many people predicted would be dominated by Lotus. In the end, it is BMW on top. Century Motorsport win in GT4, and a brilliant drive from Ravi Ramyeed and Charlie Robertson. Faultless drive, really, from the 71 pairing. They managed the pit stops. They didn't pick up any penalties. No on-track dramas, and Century Motorsport quite rightly can celebrate that down in the pit lane, and they will be absolutely thrilled with the way that their afternoon has gone. Well, James.
And breathe.
And breathe. I mean, that was astonishing. We promised drama, excitement, unpredictability. I'll be honest, even as I said those words 3 hours ago, I didn't anticipate that much coming our way. What a race.
So much strategy involved, and wow, yeah, my brain hurts, but yeah, really interesting to sort of try and stay on top of it all, and you couldn't predict it. And we said it at the beginning, you know, I would not have predicted that outcome, especially, you know, seeing the 42 car, given how off in quality they were, to see how strong they were at the end. And yeah, wow, what a race. Wow.
Yeah, indeed so, and it's won by Darren Leung and Dan Harper. It is their second Silverstone 500 victory. They become only the second drivers in history to win this race twice, of course. They joined Sandy Mitchell as a 2-time winner. Sandy did it with 2 different co-drivers, though, so technically only 3 drivers have achieved that accolade. They are a guest entry in the championship. They don't score championship points, so maximum points for the second race in a row will go to the 42 car. That will get some tongues wagging up and down the pit lane, I am sure. The last time a guest entry won here at the Silverstone 500 was 2021, when 2Cs, funnily enough, won. Hunter Abbott and Martin Kodrich at the wheel of that Mercedes on that occasion. But it's all about BMW. They win in GT3, they win in GT4, and in GT3 in particular, it was a real nail-biter. And Dan Harper, to his credit there, James, did a really good job of managing that pressure. I know it's not his first rodeo. He's been here before. He knows how to handle the pressure, but it doesn't get any easier, does it?
Did the job, BMW factory driver. That's what he's paid to do, and that's what he did. So understandably very happy, and the team, yeah, will be elated with that.
As is Dan, I think, there, as he got out of the car, gave the number 1, and once he's de-helmeted, I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to have a chat with him. Stefan Rattel wandering over to give his congratulations, and I'm sure he enjoyed the show that we've just seen. Dan Harper looks, I think, suitably red-faced and worn out after that.
The same colour as his car.
Same, matching the car, yes, well spotted. As Stefan Rattel gives a handshake to Dan Harper. And that was a job well done, as you said, for the factory BMW drive. I can't wait to get his thoughts, and perhaps those of Darren Leung as well, who I'm sure was watching on anxiously down in the pit lane through that final stint. Bryn is there, ready to have a chat then with our Silverstone 500 winner.
Well, Dan, as he goes over to be congratulated by the team, and there's quite a lot of emotion here as well, you could just see, or you sense the way that race was going, that Dan really had to have his wits about him, and he had to protect it, didn't he? Let's grab him if we can. It's a lot of congratulations, Dan. Just saying how much you had to work for that one as well, because at the very end of the race, the last 15, 20, 25 plus minutes as well, you were really having to defend.
Yeah, I knew it was Kane behind, and obviously I know Kane from the past in the Ginetta days as teammates, so I knew what he's like, and I know how good he is, so I was really under pressure, and the guys were updating me every lap on the gap, and obviously I could see him coming as well, and I was just praying that the GT4s would be kind to me, and they were, so yeah, unreal.
But the GT4s is a big part of the story, because you were catching and then you were getting past, and sometimes favourably, sometimes not so, and Kian was getting some good luck and some bad luck, and it was impossible to know, but getting past is different to catching, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I knew that I would make the car as wide as possible whenever he came close, and I think the strength of our car is to defend against the others, so I also wasn't going to give it up easy. But yeah, I'm just delighted for the team. We made the gamble at the beginning with a strategy, and it's worked. So
waiting for Darren to make his way down here. He's probably exhausted after his flight to the London Stadium yesterday, or wherever it was, Tottenham Stadium, wasn't it, to see the boxing. For yourself and for him, you've won before here in 2023. To come back and do it again in such a way must be something you're very proud of. I saw the way you were greeting the team. And there is Darren. There you go, barreling through. I mean, forget the boxing yesterday. This is a heavyweight. Darren Lung coming in here and leaping all over Dan Harper. Darren, I was just saying to Dan how 2023 you got the victory, and that was on the way to the championship. You come back and you've done it again in another one-off. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's been an unbelievable weekend to come back as a one-off. We had our work cut out for us, but hats off to the team. They pulled an absolute blinder on strategy, and yeah, we did it.
You did it. It was an amazing performance from both of you, and the way that Dan held it together at the very end, you have to say congratulations to him for that performance, but for yourself and your stint, that was also pretty epic too.
Yeah, no, I mean, if there's one guy you're going to have in the car for that, it's him, so yeah, mega.
Well done, well done. I'm going to disappear off and go and find our GT4 winners, and this is a role reversal from Donington Park as I leave Dan and Darren to congratulate each other. A role reversal from Donington, the championship. Woo, it's hotting up after 2 rounds, both of you. I mean, Ravi, you had your work cut out. It was strategy. It was a lot of safety cars, a lot of full course yellows under all of us having to contend with.
Yeah, I just did what I was told. I got in the car and drove, and I got told to come in. I came in, and I told to go back out again, went back out again, and it worked out really well for us. So
he did what he was told, and you did what you had to do.
Yeah, it was nice. Just popped out in the lead at the end, and I knew, given clear space, we had nice pace. And I was just looking in the mirror, I could see Jack behind us, and I was just trying to edge away at the start, and then obviously the tyres fell off like a cliff at the end, so it was managing that. And yeah, Silverstone 500 winners, so that's what was the aim coming into this weekend, and we did it, so absolutely buzzing.
Just means you've got a bit of a tougher job next time when you go out there, because you've got the full pit stop compensation time, but there you go. I think you'll take that with a Silverstone 500 victory. Well done both, well done.
Thank you, Ben, that's great, thanks.
Cheers, thank you.
Well, some very happy drivers down in the pit lane celebrating their class wins. And it was a good day to be a BMW driver as they claim victory in both classes. Dan Harper and Darren Leung become 2-time Silverstone 500 winners, starting for Paradigm Competitions BMW squad. 2Cs Motorsport, Kian Jewis and Charles Dawson second. Under 0.6 of a second between them. Morgan Tilbrook and Marvin Kirchhofer were third, ahead of Blackthorn's Aston Martin in fourth, and the Orange Racing by JMH McLaren in fifth. The best of the Barwell cars were sixth, ahead of Paddock Motorsport, and the second Barwell car, number 78 in eighth, and Stella Motorsport and Team Aber Racing complete the top 10. In GT4, again, BMW on top, Century Motorsport getting 2 cars onto the GT4 podium. The 71 example of Ravi Ramid and Charlie Robertson winning overall, with Mark Warren and Jack Brown's Optimum McLaren second, and then Brandon Templeton and Chris Solkel coming home in third position were also the victors in the GT4 Silver Cup, narrowly 1.5 seconds only ahead of Harry George and Luca Hopkinson, who were fourth overall in GT4 and second in GT4 Silver. Jamie Orton and Will Burns completing the top 5 and a Pro-Am podium. And then further back, those that had issues, shall we say, and there were plenty of them, perhaps most high profile of them all, that 84 Mahiki racing car of Josh Miller and Aidan Neat, which qualified on pole by a country mile, looked as though they were going to disappear off into the distance. and then had that failure out on circuit that took them out of the race. They weren't the only contender to hit big trouble like that, but 84 and the whole Mahiki squad will have to try and bounce back next time out in the third round of the championship. So an awful lot to reflect upon at the end of Silverstone 500 Sunday, and how we're going to cram all the highlights into this next VT, I'm not quite sure. Let's give it a go, shall we? The 2025 Silverstone 500 began with an aerial display by the Red Devils, and that was not the only excitement the fans here at Silverstone were able to enjoy today. The start of the race saw Morgan Tilbrook lead in the 77 McLaren and really nicely control the opening stint of the race that saw some good battles up and down the order. In GT4 though, things didn't get off to a great start for the front row starting Optimum McLaren, which had contact with the 71 BMW at turn 1 and had to recover from a wayward moment through the runoff area. First time the GT3 cars came through the traffic is really when the race started to come to life. Kevin Say was chasing after Morgan Tilbrook and almost had a chance to make the move in traffic as they exited Cops Corner. The McLaren stayed ahead, whilst behind the Barwell Motorsport cars were battling. Car number 1 was charging up the order. A great opening stint for Rob Collard, coming from the back of the top 10 to contest for second place. Upon a race restart after a safety car, the 18 car got nerfed off wide by Marcus Clutton, and then Sam Neary made contact with Matt Griffin's Ferrari, sending the 55 car off into the gravel at Club Corner. Then, major drama in GT4, the so far dominant number 84 Mahiki Racing Lotus losing its right rear wheel and heading into the gravel at high speed. That brought about a full course yellow, at the beginning of which car 42 was deemed to have overtaken a GT4 car. That led to a penalty, and when Kian Dewis rejoined the circuit, he was narrowly behind Dan Harper's Paradigm Competition BMW, and with 20 or so minutes to go, Kian set about putting the drive of his life in, chasing down the BMW that most people had already conceded was going to win the race. Kian's charge ended up just short, just under 0.6 of a second away from the victory that went to Dan Harper and Darren Leon.